Blog Talk Radio.
Dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We rooting, and we go into that fight to land on the line.
Fans, this is the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We are live on a Thursday night, kind of funky. Of course, we did the 2021 year-in review show last week. My schedule's kind of getting mixed up. We're having some COVID issues at work, so I had to do it tonight. But anyway, that's okay, right? No big deal. Hopefully everybody had a good New Year's and were safe enough. Hopefully you weren't stuck out in the cold. That's something like when you're younger and you really try to take advantage of New Year's. And everybody says, like, the people that go out, a good chunk of them are like, it's just amateur night, It's just like, hey, let's do it. It's kind of like Halloween, especially when you're in your teens and 20s, And I just found myself stuck outside in the cold, drunk as hell, waiting on what would have been a cab or an Uber now for like 90 minutes. You know what I mean? Just like, this fucking sucks, Give me a good, like, somewhat small house party with people I really know well, and I'm down for it, man. I'm down for it. But anyway, hopefully you had a good time. I know a lot of people just kind of were chill. But yeah. We have a fair amount to get to. Obviously, we will recap, 7 total fights, 5 on the Fox pay-per-view with, of course, Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin in a great heavyweight fight. Didn't last long. It's funny because the way the pay-per-view card opened and closed was just fun as hell. And then there was 2 other fights on Fox, too, on the prelim. So we'll recap all 7 of them, and I gotta be honest with you. 5 out of the 7 fights were pretty damn good. Going into it, I had interest as far as the pay-per-view on 4 out of the 5 fights. One of the fights, that rematch fight, didn't really turn out. The first half of that fight was really slow. Got a little better at the end, but the last few rounds, still, it wasn't that good. Not as good as the first fight, really, at all. And then the Frank Sanchez fight, it was nice to see Frank Sanchez, get out because he only fought in October, so that was nice. But, that fight didn't do a whole lot. But, when you could televise fully 7 fights and 5 of them I have interest in, I got to say, now, if this was a full-price pay-per-view with that in the main event, I probably wouldn't have pulled the trigger. But we'll talk about that. We'll definitely talk about it. Like I said, that heavyweight fight, the opening heavyweight fight on the pay-per-view, and the prospect versus prospect on the Fox fight were freaking fun-ass fights, no doubt about it. And that's what's cool when you put a bunch of the same weight class on one card. You can just kind of mix and match past that. Now, we will minorly have a kind of a quicker preview section there for the show box. The main event, it's, like 80-0 or something like that, 88-0 or something like that as far as all 6 fighters, so everybody's undefeated. The 2 undercard fights, I have a lot more intrigue in, especially the co-feature, which I think will be the co-feature. Not that I don't have, interest in the main event, I do, but that seems to be the one on paper that you kind of know who's going to for sure win that fight. You never know, though. But Showbox, that's another thing about Showtime. We can complain about some of their pay-per-views now, or if you don't think Gervonta should be on pay-per-view, that's cool. But they give us great championship boxing, and they also give us the Showbox, man, the prospect stuff. So coming off what was the best network of the year, and I know a lot of people had them out of business because Bob and Eddie told them that. And some other people thought for other reasons. I'm not just blaming they just listened to Bob and Eddie. I mean, I'd say the vast majority of them did. But I'm not trying to put everybody in that category. I can understand some of the thought process anyway, minorly. But they definitely had a damn good year, and if you look at what they got on paper so far, sounds like they're going to announce Showtime in the coming weeks. So if you look at what they have on paper right now, as far as what we know and what's pretty much done, we do have a new date for the Charlo Castaño fight too. But it's happening. It is happening. And we will go over some fight news as well, some current fight news. There's a variety of it out there. Some fights that have been finalized in the first quarter of 2022, I almost said 21, is definitely filling up. We got a month now that we know when Spence and Ugas is going to happen. It's kind of weird. The WBC had a ruling on the purse bid, or the purse split, if it does go to purse bid, for the Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte potential fight for the WBC mandatory. It's 80-20, and we'll get into both sides of that like we do. We're not just going to one-side it. We do have some quotes from Bob Arum, and we've heard plenty of quotes from Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte, but especially Eddie Hearn as far as, what they feel like they're worth and whatnot. So we'll get into some of that. So there's other fight news as well. The IBF heavyweight title eliminator to create a mandatory spot is having a tough time finding a partner. Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker recently turned it down. Of course, we'll have, like I said, some current fight news, and of course our boxing Twitter segment. That's usually how we end, with the tweet of the week, or some fanboy tweets, or media members behaving as fanboys. And boy, do we got some doozies in that, all three categories, but especially those last two. The media fanboy stuff. Boy, oh boy, were some media members happy when Luis Ortiz was on the deck and it looked like Charles Martin might win this fight. Boy, oh boy, were they happy, because they can find a way to discredit the best win of Deontay Wilder's career. Man, were they so happy. So happy when that was happening. It's quite funny. Anyway, if this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. However, you don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope and download the show directly there or listen in the browser. You can find this platform on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, even on Amazon Music as well. Sometimes I forget to mention that. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to the gruelingtruth.com. And one more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you have and you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called DirecTV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99 a month. It's the best of live TV and on demand. There's no annual contract, no hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice Package or Ultimate Package, that'll give you 3 free months of HBO Max. Plus, you get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees, which sometimes you can't even pay a fee to get the regional sports network because they don't even have it on the cable system. And boxing fans, something to listen to here. If you go to the Premier Package, you get HBO Max and Showtime already included. I think it's $11 or $12 for the Showtime on this app anyway. That's DirecTV Stream. Okay, so we have a lot to get into when it comes to recap, no doubt about it. And I got to say, when this fight got announced, I wasn't jumping for joy. Well, I liked the fight. First, they got announced. It didn't get announced. From what I remember, when it was, well, I shouldn't say announced, but when it started to be like pretty strong inklings, not just rumors that this fight was going to happen, Charles Martin and Luis Ortiz, I was hoping it would be on Fox, of course. I think everybody was, right? It would be a really interesting, great Fox card. Now, that date, it probably wouldn't have been a great day to do it because college football, runs that New Year's Day, right? They have a bunch of, the Rose Bowl and other bowls too. Sugar Bowl, yada, 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 right? The day before this year, it ended up, the two semifinals ended up on New Year's Eve, which happens like every fifth year or something like that. But yeah, you probably don't want to go head to head there. So when they said it was pay-per-view, I did kind of scratch my head. Now, when they said it was $40, $39.99, whatever, that's about half the price, right? Give or take. But when I saw the undercard, and usually you get 4 fights on an undercard, right, for a pay-per-view, and they give you a bonus 5, and I thought, okay, what are these fights here? And anytime, especially, I like to reiterate the half price thing, right, of the pay-per-view. If I'm interested in 4 out of the 5 fights on there, what, the only one, what I say, did I say Frank Martin or did I say Frank Sanchez? I just remember that. Did I say that wrong? I can't remember. But Frank Sanchez matchup, I wasn't like over the top, interested in his original one or even the second one. Who, he fought a tough dude or whatever. But either way, 4 out of 5 is not a normal thing, right? It's not. You don't really get interested in 4 out of the 5. Now, you may be interested in a prospect or a contender on the card, Frank Sanchez, but the matchup usually isn't all that good. And I'm talking about the last, decade, last 15 years of pay-per-view, right? And then when you add those Fox prelims, I did have interest, and I thought those were real prospect fights. You had 2 undefeated Cuban heavyweights going head-to-head. That turned out to be a great fight. And then even Frank Martin was in a real fight. So I was like, okay, if I'm interested in 6 out of the 7 fights, and then when it comes to actually in the ring, 5 out of the 7, I wait until the actual fights before you make a final, statement on a card. It can't always be what people thought going in, because entertainment value is entertainment value. I am glad they didn't do a full pay-per-view on this, that they only did half the price. Maybe I'd have a different thought process, when it comes to that. Now, so all in all, when I think about undercard pay-per-views, and I think about this being discounted, I had my questions about it, right? I definitely looked at it a couple different ways, and even the night of, this one, Showtime, the only thing about the Showtime pay-per-view that sucks, and the advantage of having it on ESPN Plus or having it on the Fox Sports app, because when Fox does a pay-per-view, they put it on the Fight app too, Fight TV. And why I say that is I have digital cable. I don't have the normal cable. So I can't go to a channel 800 or whatever and rent the pay-per-view, buy it, and then record it. I can't do that. I have to go to the Showtime app. Well, the Showtime app, you can't record the Showtime app broadcast. So there's times where, I work Saturday nights at a brewery, right? Or maybe I have a prior engagement as well that night, whatever it is. I'm not home every Saturday night watching boxing. I am late night Saturday and the rest of the weekend, and sometimes Monday, And sometimes if I do a show on Tuesday and Wednesday, I watch a fight or two right before I come on, just to get it all in. But the difference here is on the Fight TV, I can just buy it. Like I can literally go to do whatever I have to do and then buy it later. And let's say I get home at, let's say, 10 and the main event's about to start. 10:30 Central, right? Well, then I can buy it and just rewind the card if I wanted to. Or I could watch the fight and then rewind the card. I just have more options. So to be honest with you, I didn't buy the pay-per-view when I left to go to work. I was at work. I had been talking to a buddy that was interested in renting and hanging out and doing it. And so buddy came into the brewery while I was working. We started talking. And he's like, let's split it, dude. I got shit to do tonight, too, for a couple hours, so I won't be able to be available to watch it live anyway. So you go do your thing. I think he had his wife, some family stuff they had to do. And so I was like, cool, perfect, dude. So you got, it's $20. So then when you start to, if it's 75 or 80, some of them are still 70, but that's usually 75 anyway. I saw the UFC bumped up their pay-per-views to 75. I thought they weren't going to be like boxing. Too bad they do like 12 a year. But anyway, so I was like, screw it. I was going to do it anyway. I was on the fence, and then I was probably going to buy it anyway. But when I got the chance to split it, I was like, oh yeah, for sure I will, because now it's worth it, And I gotta say, even if I would have paid the whole $40, this was a damn good card. And anyone that denies it, that actually watched it, whether it was live stream or you got to catch some of them on YouTube or Daily Motion or All the Best Fights or wherever you find the replays, anybody that's denying that this wasn't a good pay-per-view undercard, especially a half-price one, hasn't been paying attention in the last 10 to 15 years of undercards. And like I said, we are going to have a pay-per-view list of main events that people are going to scratch their head and be like, that was a HBO pay-per-view? And you'd be like, oh, I guess this didn't just start with the PBC. Now, let's see what Thurman and Barrios. I still don't have a price on that one. My guess is, though, this is just a guess, my guess is it's going to be a full price one. I do like the undercard fights, 2 out of 3. Leo Santa Cruz, once again, I have interest in Santa Cruz, but it's not like he's facing a good fight, right? He's getting back, and then he's probably going to fight the winner of the Wood and Conlon. Who knows? Maybe he fights Gary Russell too. I don't know. But anyway, the other 2 fights I have interest in. Then during the fight news segment, by the way, we will be talking about another fight that it sounds like they're going to put that on the Fox main event that night. So it will be another prelim. And it's kind of interesting because it's after another basketball game. This last one, although when you look at the ratings of both, it really doesn't. The college football totally took that away, any chance of that being a good rating. But, the boxing did technically do better than the basketball, the college basketball, but it wasn't like it was a big college basketball game. But it sounds like there's a triple header on Fox, and then it's going to lead into that. So, I've been wanting to see some of those lead-ins on Fox and on FS1, and let's hope. But the Jesus Ramos, it sounds like anyway, is going to be on that undercard. I'm assuming it'll be a doubleheader like those prelims on pay-per-view are. So once again, you're going to get 6 fights that night. So we'll see. Anyway, let's get to this card, okay? Like I said, I did have questions. I did scratch my head, but now that it's Thursday, now that the fight's over, I got my money's worth. And like I said, anybody that's been buying pay-per-views for a decade plus know damn well that this was as much as we may not like it, this was a damn good pay-per-view. I can't deny it. I mean, it just was. But anyway, let's go to the main event. Ortiz came out pretty heavy with the jabs to the head and body. Martin landed a left hand that knocked him down. I think he landed another left later in that round, but it was kind of like on the back of the head. It was kind of the top of the back of the head, if that makes sense. And that usually means the equilibrium. You're going to fall. You're going to drop. Your legs are going to look bad. So, when you look at this fight and you look at the legs of Ortiz, now he's not going to be on the move much anymore. Not that he was always on the move, because he's usually a guy that does come to you a lot behind that jab and trying to land that big left hand and those hooks and stuff. But I don't know if his legs look that bad for that many rounds based off him getting hit in the side of the head or what. People kept saying the upper body looked good, but the lower body looked bad. So I'm still in between on, of course, he doesn't have great legs at his age, in his 40s, we'll just say. Whether that's 42, 43, 44, whatever. But are they that bad? Well, they couldn't have been that bad because he's stabled enough to land a great shot. But anyway, second round, so that's where I'm in between. Like, how shot is Ortiz? That's what a lot of people kind of came away with this one. But I got to give credit because, where credit's due, Ortiz did in that second round start landing his double jabs and then followed it up, with some nice straight left hands. I gave him the second round. To me, it was kind of a slower round for a little bit in the third. Ortiz definitely wasn't as active. Martin, you could have gave Martin the round probably because of his jabs. The fourth round, once again, left hand early in that round, and then another one like 30 seconds left. It was like he got knocked down from a left hand, like a jab. He went down. He got caught like just perfectly from the jab from Martin. It was right when you could see Ortiz. I guess he just felt like he got his swag back or something, and he wasn't respecting him, but he dropped, He was landing, he was kind of sticking with the jab in his left hands again. But once again, now all of a sudden you touch the mat twice, and you're like, holy shit, dude, this is going to be tough, And Ortiz came out in the fifth. He was landing the bigger shots. Maybe Martin was busier. And he did have some nice late lands in that round, but I gave the round to Ortiz for sure. For me, he definitely landed the bigger shot, or bigger shots, I should say. Then in the sixth round, Martin has, landing that left hand more and more. But Ortiz lands this flush left hand that just froze him. It froze him like sideways, like he was talking to the audience or whatever. I mean, it was nasty. And it's one of those, it comes up once in a while throughout the year. It's kind of one of those walking concussions, they used to call it, where he didn't go out, for like 5 or 10 seconds or longer, but it was like a split second, you're out, dude. To the point where he didn't know where he was. And Ortiz just poured it on with the left hand, several left hands, shoe shine into the body, knocks him down again. And then you had Martin literally stuck in the ropes. Like his hand was stuck in the ropes, but he was so out of it that I'm not saying he purposely got it stuck there because it looked kind of funky anyway. I don't know if you'd want to, was it tight enough to take any circulation away or whatever? I don't know, but it was a weird, strange thing, and I wonder what the commission rules are, the overall rules there. Does the ref help him there? Because if he's half out of the ring, it's not like the ref helps him out, So it was kind of a weird scenario there, but he was done, dude. Martin was done from the jump street, from that left hand. It was done. So anyway, he proceeded to knock him, score 2 more knockdowns, and it was a TKO. He was done. He was done. I don't care what anybody says. It was a wrap. It was a wrap. And Martin because he was so out of it, came over somewhat intensely. Ortiz wasn't looking at him at the start. He had his back to him. He turned around, and he said, "This is bullshit." And he kind of went up to him and said, "This is bullshit, dude. I'm good. I'm still on my feet," basically, is what it sounded like he was saying. He was saying bullshit. And Ortiz was like, "Dude, what the?" And he pushed him. And then it calmed down. And you could see as Charles Martin's head cleared, I guess you could say, as that was happening, you could see he was like, "Okay, hold on. Maybe I was out of it." Like, hold on. What's going on here? Like, and you could see he was making peace, with the corners and Ortiz and everything like that. So it turned out to be good. But I think he was just stunned. And, for him to come over, it was kind of like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're out of it, man. Like, you're proving that you're out of it. So he was pretty mad for a while, but then it hit him that he was done. You know what I mean? So, but a fun fight. I mean, Ortiz still has that power, dude. And like I said, we know his legs aren't great anyway. In your 40s, your legs are never going to be great. But I don't know if his legs were as bad as they seemed, or it just happened to be that equilibrium shot that he got on the top of the back of his head. Because sometimes that'll take you. I mean, remember, the forehead side of the head shot that Ortiz landed on AJ. It took him a while. I mean, he never really fully recouped, but it took him a while to even look like he could throw good punches back. He was trying to throw punches, but overall, it was a damn good fight. Martin put up a really good fight, and I was happy with it. It was a fun fight, dude. It was really fun. And like I said, Ortiz, he bounced back nicely from those knockdowns and then just raked him with the left hand, man. Just raked him. What's next for Ortiz? This is the fight that we've been talking about for a little bit. Andy Ruiz did have to have that surgery, a little cleanup on his knee. So, he said he's getting back into training now and staying in shape and, ready for a big fight. And so to me, I mean, unless Ruiz were able to get like Tyson Fury or something like that, I don't know why they wouldn't make this fight. It's a big fight. Ruiz and Ortiz, let's make it happen. It's something we wanted about a year ago. It didn't happen. And, excuse me, and there's really no reason not to do it now. Now, does, I don't know, the way Ruiz sounded like he's ready to get back in the ring. I guess he hasn't been out for over a year. He fought last, May 1st or something like that? Was it late April or? I think it was May 1st. Yeah, because I think May 8th was Cinco de Mayo weekend this year. So he said he's ready to go. We'll talk a little bit about, because Ortiz, like I said, Ortiz and Parker decided to not go to purse bid or go, step into negotiation to become the IBF Mando. And, of course, that IBF Mando, was Usyk the IBF or was he WBA? Yeah, I think he was WBA. I think. Because wasn't IBF, man, sometimes you lose track of this. Was his last Mando the IBF? I can't remember now which one was which. My point is, although the IBF are strict when it comes to the Mando, I don't think they're due up next was my point on that. So I could be wrong on that one, but I don't believe so. And no matter what, he wouldn't get a shot. Well, look at it. If AJ were to beat and upset Usyk, then they'd probably have a trilogy. Right? But either way, they're going to look to do the undisputed fight. So you're still not going to get a title shot. You could be in good range, but you're not going to be a title shot. So we'll see. Like I said, I would love to see that Ruiz fight. Why not? And if fights like that are around, I guess you could make an argument for Tyson Fury, but I don't think. Well, he definitely won't be ready in March, you know. But anyway, we do have some Tyson Fury news that we'll talk about as well. But that's the fight I want to see. I think it's a good fight. I think it draws decently on pay-per-view. I think it draws a nice crowd. I think it's a good fight for Ruiz. And, you know, let's get it done. I think that would be a damn good fight for both. Some people are saying the trilogy with Wilder and Ortiz. I mean, it's obviously it's not a bad fight, right? Because I just don't know if I want to see that right now. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't go and call it a shitty fight because if you look at, you know, the amount of rounds they've fought together, Ortiz has the clear advantage in winning rounds. And in both fights, he at least buzzed, fully hurt Wilder in the first fight. But even the second fight, he was landing some big shots before he got knocked out in, the sixth round. So would I be against the fight? I wouldn't be against it because I know it's going to be competitive. And who knows? I mean, we don't know what Wilder's going to look like after that you know, war and all that punishment he took in the last fight, you know. So I wouldn't be against it. I won't, you know, the whole fresh matchup thing. Because you can make an argument this is Ortiz's best chance to win, you know. Now, he's not fresh either, though, right? So maybe in 2018 when he had him hurt was his best chance to win. But I wouldn't be just like, oh, this is a horrible fight. But I do want to see a fresh matchup, and I think that would do it. Now, if Wilder and Ruiz, I get, you know, if Andy Ruiz is offered Wilder, then why in the hell would you fight Ortiz when you're going to fight Wilder for more money? That would be a big pay-per-view. You know, I'm not saying it'd do $1 million, but it would be a healthy pay-per-view and a healthy-ass game. No doubt about that. So we'll see how that goes. As far as the other fights on the card, and, of course, there were plenty of them. The Frank Sanchez, Christian Hammer, it just was a slow fight. And you could see Hammer was he was walking forward the whole time, so you know how they call that mental pressure. So he put a lot of mental pressure on him. But in the end, Frank Sanchez was just kind of coasting. Or not kind of, he was, you know what I mean? There's times like, say, in the third round where Sanchez got something going and started kind of backing him up and digging him to the body. I mean, I'll say this, Sanchez, for a heavyweight, was attacking the body really, really well. The problem was it was one punch at a time. You know, one punch, barely any combos. And so Sanchez got some good rounds, but he just needed to, you know, throw more combos. Even when he had him a little hurt and he started throwing combos, you see how he backed up off him. It's almost like in his nature that amateur stuff comes out and says, all right, you know, I'm winning this round. Just win the round, you know. So that was somewhat of a disappointment, but I'm not shocked. Sanchez needs someone to not only put the mental pressure coming forward on him, but he needs someone to open up on him. Then he'll open up. But he's not going to take necessary threats most of the time. And it was, I'm not going to say it was night and day, but it was damn near night and day if you look at his FA at Jogba in October and what he was able to do to FA and some of the clean shots, and by the way, combinations as well that he landed compared to this one, you know. Like I said, that's dope that they're keeping him active. You know, he's had 5 fights in a very short amount of time, so that's helpful. Not to say this fight didn't do anything for him, but yeah, it was just you're in a co-feature. It literally came down to like if Sanchez would have thrown 3 or 4 combos around, he may have gotten them out of there, and maybe Christian Hammer would have been like, okay, this dude's trying to really knock me out here. I'm going to have to do something. So I had it like 8-2, I think it was. Or no, wait, maybe I'm looking at. Yeah, I'm looking at a different card. But so yeah, that one, not much there to be pumped about. I really liked Frank Sanchez. Don't get me wrong, as far as who he can beat. I get it stylistically sometimes. And like I said, if a guy's going to come at you and not throw punches, he's happy enough or just like, I'm good, dude. I'm winning this fight. I'm not going to take risks, So that was the only fight. And like I said, out of 7 fights, 5 on the pay-per-view and 2 on Fox, out of 7 fights, to be happy with 5 of them, I'm cool. The other one was Coffey and Johnny Rice. And both these guys came in worse shape than the original fight. Especially Rice, the guy who won the fight. He was he like 13 pounds more or something like that? You could kind of see that Rice, I think I wrote this down. Yeah, for the first 3 rounds, they both landed 16 apiece. Which for heavyweight, it's not the horrible number, but it was more like, I don't remember like a big land in there. So if you're only going to be landing about 5 punches around at heavyweight, you'd like it to be, bigger shots, right? But then, and you could tell that Rice was pacing himself because he wasn't in tip-top shape. He definitely wasn't in the shape that he was prior in that other fight because he was way more active. So, once the first 3 rounds for sure were slow. You could kind of see the jab right hand happening a little bit for Rice in the 4th round, and Coffey made a late rally. Rice with the straight right hands and more left hooks, flush-ass shots, and I think Coffey got a pretty nasty cut in the 6th round. So down the stretch, it definitely got better, right? It definitely got better. But I just think those first 3 to 4 rounds just kind of put a dud on the fight. Knowing that you had already seen a more exciting fight, that's where it was like, but Rice finished strong, but he probably could have stopped him again had he just been in better shape. So through 10 rounds, it was 108 to 60. So he clearly outpunched him, 28% to 16. One scorecard had it, or 2 had it 97-93. The other one had it 99-91. This is what I was thinking. I had it 7-3 or 8-2. More than likely 8-2, but maybe 7-3 tops. And a lot of that was just Rice. Coffey had his little moments, and I'm talking little, but it seemed like it was just Rice pacing himself. So it's kind of funky because I really am intrigued in Johnny Rice now as a fringe contender, but he's just got to be in better shape. You can't come that much heavier when it's a planned fight. It's a planned fight. It's not like you came on short notice this time, right? So that's what kind of had me scratching my head. I was like, well, what the hell? How do you come with a planned fight and now you're out of shape? So definitely want to see where Johnny Rice goes, but I really hope that he, this was a good opportunity for him to repeat. And don't get me wrong, he won the fight cleanly. And he said some funny shit after the fight, too. He was like, he's a funny dude, What did he say? His mom, he promised his mom that he's going to make her a grandma. But he doesn't have a girlfriend yet, but he's working on that. So it was pretty funny. It's like, we're still working on that. So it's going to be a tough one. So that was funny. But, yeah, a little disappointed there. Then you had Gerald Washington and Demirazin. Ali Aren Demirazin, I think it is. Dan Marizin. And I was intrigued in this one because I wanted to see Demirazin, coming off that FA loss a few years back. I kind of wanted to see he bounce back, won some fights. And, Washington early in the fight, I gave him round 1. I thought he was busier. But you couldn't give him too many more rounds after that. I mean, he had his moments, but he gassed pretty early and got hurt fairly early, too. The left hooks, overhand rights. Actually, the second round, late in that round, was super back and forth now that I think about or maybe that was the third round. But the left hooks and overhand rights by Demarizin were just finding a home. And when you look at the two, Washington is definitely the more put-together guy. Demarizin could get some of that, I'll just call it baby fat off of him. But he's just an active fighter, and he's coming strong. And, come fourth, fifth, sixth, he was just walking him down, landed the better shot, being busier. Washington, would land the jab and a few right hands, but, he walked him down. There's no doubt about it. I was very impressed with what I saw out of him. And started adding even more pressure, hooks with both hands. And come, eighth round, it was a TKO stoppage, the corner stoppage. So really impressed with what I saw out of Demarizin. And, he's still on that fringe contender spot. So I think, I think we got something there. You know what I mean? I think he's a good fighter. And maybe he's just going to be a B-side. Maybe not. I don't know. Well, more than likely, it'll just be a good B-side. And that's why you put cards together and try to stack them with as many of the same weight. Obviously, this one was heavyweight because now he can mix and match. Maybe him and Rice would be a damn good fight. You know what I mean? So Frank Sanchez, whatever. Like, this is he made a good name for himself on this card. I'll say that. I liked what I saw. And, he shows shades of what he can do in that F.A. Ajagba fight. He just couldn't necessarily get over the top. Oops. You know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely liked what I saw out of him. I thought it was, a damn good performance. Now, the first fight on the pay-per-view anyway, what is it, Kalatse? I think it's Kalatse and Faust. Victor Faust. That's that 8-0 prospect. Now he's 9-0, but he's got a lot of the pedigree stuff, the amateur career, and they're going to move him pretty good. So I did think Kalatse was like a good test at this range. I thought, all right, dude, let's see what he's got, because although the Kalatse dude's limited, he'll put on a damn good fight. He gets it in, and usually you have to kind of brawl his ass out there, and that's exactly what happened, dude. This was a wild fight, dude. It only went, 2 rounds? Yeah, 2 rounds, but this was crazy, dude. Faust came out, landed like a jab, and then a right hand left hook, scored a knockdown. Then that Kalatse lands a counter right hand and knocks him into the ropes. And, all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this is going to, he's scoring knockdowns and shit. It was like back and forth. Then Faust got up and landed, I think, 2 left hooks, something like that, and he knocks him down. So you got 3 knockdowns in the first round. And then you had Kalatse, I think, these looping wide right hands, dude, like 3 or 4 of them. He was just really landed on Faust. So I thought, dude, I knew this was going to be a good test and whatnot, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. So then you're like, all right, dude, well, this is going to be a war. This is a great way to start the card. And you started to see, like, Kalatse landed his jab with the left hook and counter right hands. You had that Victor Faust, bloody nose. It was like he definitely cried. I don't know if he bent it and it was bloody, like it was broken, but it was definitely bleeding. Then there was a left hand that, he scored a knockdown on and landed pretty damn good, obviously. But when Kalatse got up, you can argue this stoppage, okay? Obviously, Kalatse did. He pushed the ref, right? And when I first saw it, I thought, you know what, dude? Like, he already had old boy on the mat. This seems like a shootout. You might as well let this shit go, you know? So my first instinct was like, that was early. That was early. But when you saw the replay and then saw it again, that wobbly, not being able to balance yourself when you're walking backwards away from the ref and you're wobbly, and then he says, come to you. Do you want to, you know, he didn't really respond the first time. He said, come to me. Do you want to fight? And he tried to come to him, and he was wobbly. He didn't actually answer him the first time. Then he was like, no, dude, I'm good, you know. So it's debatable. I see a lot of debate, you know, that later that night when I was checking out card. And it was debatable, but when I see the replay, and of course it was a brawl, it was a war, you know, I could kind of see where the ref was coming at, because his legs, I'm not going to say they were 100% gone, okay? That's not what I'm saying, but they were gone. They were kind of gone. You know what I mean? Like, when I saw that replay and how he couldn't really balance himself, and then it was a bit of a hesitation when he said, come forward and are you okay? With that said, though, I do think he was okay enough. He could have went on, because, you know, Kalatse, like I said, he had the energy, everything else past that. Of course, you could say the same thing about Charles Martin, but we saw Charles Martin literally freeze in the ring, you know? So he was out on his feet. Whereas, at least you can make an argument that, hey, they probably should have let this one go a little longer. I'm kind of, like, I get that, and my first instinct was that, but when I saw the replay, let's just put it this way. I've seen worse stoppages, okay? And that's not, I mean, it does suck, you know, for, I guess you could say, the B side in this thing. That does suck, but when I look at it, I'm not sure if it was like, you know, the worst call. I just don't know about that one. Now, as far as the Fox main events and the co-feature, that double header, and this one was the prelim on Fox. That's, you know, I think what they had 10. The deal called for 10. I mean, the original deal called for 10 main events. Now we might be getting 10 pay-per-views, but now it called for 10 Fox main events. Usually about 2 of them would be like an hour early. So in Central Time, it's 5 to 7, or really it'd be 6 to 8. This pay-per-view started an hour early, but, you know, usually 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern is when pay-per-views generally start, right? Now, those Sunday pay-per-views, they're starting them an hour early for obvious reasons. You got to work in the morning. But it's a 2-hour clip there. So, and we now pretty much know, it's not official, but we pretty much know who's going to be the Fox prelim February 5th doing it. It's a good prospect fight. But anyway, you know, Romero Duno is a heavy hitter. He came in there, 22-2 or 24-2? Bunch of knockouts. I don't think it's 20. I think it's like 18 or 19. I think it's 19. And so to me, you know, in your 15th fight, Frank Martin, I don't have a problem with this being, you know, on the television, right? Like, this is a decent set for him. Like, it's okay. I'm not trying to make Duno out to be a world beater. I remember the people that don't necessarily like Ryan Garcia sure tried to make him out to be a killer. And it's funny, actually, Gomez and Oscar were saying, because remember when Ryan Garcia wanted a little bit more money, wanted to redo his deal for obvious reasons, they were trying to say that Duno, they was ducking Duno, and then look what he did to Duno. It's kind of funny. His own people, his own representation said he was ducking him, but that was not the case. You know, Martin to me, though, looked really good. He did what he had to do. Was he supposed to win this fight? Yes. And he did it in pretty good fashion. You know, he was real smooth, throwing that jab out there, landed some nice left hands. By the time the second round came around, he started, you know, landing more. Second and third round, he started landing, like, harder combinations. And was it a clean left hand, I think, was the first knockdown. And then the second one, I think, was another left hand, if I remember correctly. And it was a TKO. Overall, I thought Frank Martin looked damn good at this fight. I was like, okay, that was a clean performance. Some people are a little higher than others on him. Some people are kind of middle of the road. They don't really know what to think all the way. But now moving to 15-0 and like, is it 10 or 11 knockouts? I can't remember. But I liked it. I thought it was a pretty damn good performance. Now the undercard opener, the co-feature, was only a doubleheader. This was a good matchup, and we kind of knew it on paper. You have two Cuban heavyweights, one 6-0, Broussard, I think that's what his name is, and then Pero, Linear Pero was 5-0. So it's literally, this kind of felt like a showbox card or a showbox fight, but with, I would say on both sides, a little bit higher degree of pedigree coming in than that. You know what I mean? Because usually you don't know one of them. On Showbox, you'll maybe know one of the undefeateds. The other ones you're like, I'm not sure, Whereas this one was like a step up from that. But this fight freaking popped off. Now, I did have Pero, winning the fight for quite some time. The first, let's see, 3 or 4 rounds, somewhere in that realm, I gave Pero those. I thought he won. There was a lot of good action, though. I liked what he was doing to the body. But even round 1 was close. Very close. You had Broussard landed some decent shots in the second, but like late, maybe 50 or 40 seconds left, there was a right hook that landed just so hard. But left hands landed flush for Pero. The left hand, of course, but those right hooks were very effective. Then, as the fight got to the middle rounds, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, that's where I thought Broussard definitely got back into it. He's just started upping his pace, landing more and more. Big left hands, hard combinations. It looked like at the end of the 5th or sometime in the 5th that Pero was definitely buzzed, if not full-on hurt in that round. And went on to land the better shots in the 6th round as well. So it was like, dude, this fight's evening out because there was no knockdowns at that point. And out of both of them came to fight. Both of them, have some sort of future at heavyweight. But Pero looks like he can lose a little weight off his midsection. Not that he was out of shape. I'm not saying that. And some guys just aren't going to look as good as others, right? You could say that for females as well, fighters. And I don't mean looks like they're pretty or whatever or good looking. I'm saying your body. Sometimes you can be stronger than someone and their body just looks better. So I'm not saying Pero was out of shape. I mean, they fought an 8-rounder here. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, he was doing his thing. But I did like how Broussard got in the fight and really started landing some big, big shots. I did think the 7th went to Pero, though. Hooks with both hands. Definitely like landing good body works. But then I gave Broussard the 8th round. He started landing combinations, especially early, a little bit late. That last round, right hooks late in the fight by Pero. But the way they closed that fight, it made you wanting to see the 9th and 10th round. And let's say in 2 or 3 years, a 12-rounder, because Broussard was definitely coming on down the stretch. So I had it like 5-3 for Pero. I think the scorecards read 2 of them 78-74 and then 77-75. Pero had the land advantage 145-117. But 508 thrown Pero and Broussard 425 in 8 rounds at heavyweight. I mean, how many times do we see both guys in the high 300s or somewhere in the 400 for a 10 or make that a 12-round fight at times? These dudes were, 425 and 508 through 8 rounds at heavyweight. So So and that's why I'm not trying to say Pero was out of shape. I want to reiterate that because I know someone's going to say something about it. But that was a damn good heavyweight fight. So, yeah, I had it 5-3, maybe 5-2-1. I know that's sacrilegious, the tied round or whatever in there. But it was a clear win by Pero, but a hard fought one, man. So, damn good fight. And I heard that, or it's actually official, that, and this is what we need more of, and I'm not trying to highlight it just because it's the PBC, but we've talked about it, the pros and cons of it over the years. Pero is going to be working with the PBC, right? He's on that side now, which obviously makes sense. Look at all the heavyweights that just fought that day, right? That's that whole mix and match thing. When 6 out of the 7 fights are heavyweight fights, we all saw them on one day where we could just mix and match, right? But Broussard fought so well that he's also got picked up, or at least I don't know if he signed directly with Al or, just his management's going to. The whole point is moving forward, they're both now going to work with the PBC. So, which I like in this scenario. Like we said, there's pros and cons, but this is a pro here because you got on your televised spot. Broussard had a kind of a rough start. You didn't win many rounds of the first 3-4 rounds there, but then made a run. So you made a great account for yourself. So, it's not always fair in boxing. Life's not fair, but especially boxing, right? But it's pretty dope, And dare I say anything great about Al Heyman? I know I'll get some messages for this or whatever, but this is dope. The guy fought his ass off, and he's only 6-1. He's only had 7 fights. You can't say the dude's career's done now. So I like it. So both of them are going to move on, at least for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I liked what I saw at Pero. Like I said, those left hands were great. That right hook was nasty, dude. So you could see it was like I said, it felt like a show box because they're both undefeated. But this was a higher level because you could see the skill. You kind of see like they had pedigree from the amateurs, but they sure as hell didn't fight like they were in the amateurs. And maybe because you are starting to see a tad bit different fighting style now in the amateurs more, minorly, not majorly, but you are seeing a difference because of the scoring and all that. And, the headgear thing too. And all those world boxing, the World Series of Boxing, you got a lot of 5-round fights. Or were they 7-round? I think they're 5-round fights. So to me, these guys didn't look like they were. They looked like they were Cuban amateurs, but they didn't, if that makes sense. And maybe this new wave of Cuban amateurs aren't going out. They're not going to be on the back foot as much. Because a fair amount of them aren't. This new batch of them, I'm not saying different breed. Arislani Lara is very talented. Rigo's very talented, right? But look at Morale. Look at some of these guys, even Frank Martin in this fight. So anyway, well, actually, that's wrong. But then you can say, well, Frank Sanchez, okay, well, he kind of showed that style, right? So, but all in all, say what you want. We definitely had questions going into this one, but I split the pay-per-view, so I paid $20. But I would, even if I paid $40 for this one, like I said at the beginning here, if I like 5 out of the 7 fights, you can't really name too many pay-per-views like that, especially that little emphasis on the half price. If this is fully priced, I still would have gotten something out of it, and I would have split it, and I still think 40 would have been good enough for me if I split it. But full price, I think I would have side-eyed it all the way. Whereas this one, I was in between, and decided to do it, and I'm happy I did. So here at Rope It Over Radio, the podcast here, we actually wait to see what happens in the ring before we just fully judge it, right? And we'll see. Like I said, that Thurman Barrios, if it's a full-priced one, I've tried to find information on it. I have yet to get the answer on if it's full price or not. My hunch is it's full priced because Thurman, Barrios isn't going to come really cheap now, right? Because he's coming off a big fight. And then Leo Santa Cruz is not cheap either. So and they're bigger names too. So I'm guessing that it's going to be full price. I hope they put that in the theater, though. I hope they put that in the theater. It's one of those where I'll watch it with some friends and split the price. But I'm not overly anxious to pay for that one the full price. You know what I mean? But if they made that one $40 with that undercard and what potentially is the main event in that Fox prelim, I think it's now that gives it a little, okay, you gave me half the price. We'll see. But anyway, I was entertained. And everybody has set their standards on what is entertainment value. I get that some people just don't want to pay pay-per-views at all. Some people only will pay for literally the best versus the best. And that doesn't always mean even Canelo and Plant, because a lot of people don't think, the Plant isn't the best versus the best, even though it's undisputed. They think Benavidez is better or whatever, So to me, I got my money's worth. You can send messages, which I know it will. You could say I'm, trying to sugarcoat this pay-per-view. If you heard us talk about this pay-per-view, we didn't sit there and, say smell the roses. This thing's beautiful. You know what I mean? We criticized it too. And we don't want to see this every month. But I got to say, pound for pound, bang for buck, I got it. I mean, this wing was cheaper than the Tyson Roy Jones. I don't pay for exhibitions on pay-per-view. You guys know that, but I got a lot of shtick for saying I don't want to buy that one. But I didn't think that was worth it for me personally. Everyone's got their own shit. It's no big deal. Anyway, like I said, we will talk a little bit more about, for some fight news. There is some fights that got announced recently. Some interesting, maneuver fights. Jesse Vargas, his fight got moved, which it's kind of weird. It got moved, but I think it's going to sell more tickets where it's at. So I think that works. But there are some other fights that have been officially announced that we'll go over. Of course, the Boxing Twitter segment. And, like I said, other news. Spence and Ugas both talked about their fight this weekend. Canelo was in the crowd. His whole shouts out to Canelo either way, but his whole interview, I'm pretty sure he did in English as well. So I like how because he always could do it, but the thing he didn't like how he sounded, so he was a little embarrassed. He was a little shy. But now I think he's getting a lot of attention for it. People are like, oh shit, and he's a funny dude, He's a funny guy. So I think now that he's getting more comfortable, it's not like he's all of a sudden getting necessarily better at it. He's been able to do this, And you can tell when people ask him questions, he understands what the hell they're talking about. Maybe he'll answer in Spanish, but he knows. So it's kind of cool that he's coming out of his shell a little bit. If you've seen that video of him partying over the weekend, that was funny to see Canelo in prime form, dude. Good for him, man. He's definitely earned some time off and some vacation time, man, because he had a busy, 4 fights in 11 months? I mean, that shit was crazy. So good for him, man. It's nice to see Canelo, but other people were out there too, of course. Of course, Ugas was out there and whatnot. And somehow Frank Sanchez just said some goofy stuff. Where's the quote? Some of these quotes, I'm like, did Frank say that, or did his promoter or manager say that? Because what was the quote? Oh, here it is. Frank Sanchez, this is BoxingScene.com. This is the headline. I'll easily KO Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk is even easier. He doesn't have technique. It's like, well, if there's one thing that Usyk does have, there's two things. Well, three. He has defense too, but stamina and technique. So for Frank Sanchez to say, knockout fury, no problem, and actually the Usyk's fight's easier because he doesn't even have technique. Well, shit, Usyk's not going to come at you, dude, per se. So he might try to outbox you, Frankie. But anyway, I thought that was kind of goofy. It's like, are you saying that, or is your manager saying that, your promoter? Because this is getting weird. Sometimes these quotes come out, and you're just like, it's just silly. We know Canelo said you're going to be a champ within a year. We get that, to say that, right? But yeah. Especially coming off that performance. Maybe he's trying to make up for the one punch out of the time performance. And so he's like, I'll kill that dude. I'll dominate him. Anyway, like I said, we'll preview a little bit of that Showbox Talk news. Let's bring in my switchboard just went a little funky. Okay, there we go. Let's bring in John to the fold and see how he's doing, how his New Year went, and whatnot. What's going on, John? How you doing, man?
Hey, Chris. Great to be here as always. Just was enjoying listening to you break down things from Saturday night, and I felt like my New Year was off to a good start with that Fox PBC card, starting out from the regular Fox, going right through the pay-per-view heavyweight card. I thought for $39.95, it ended up working out well. Put me in the plus category for last Saturday night, New Year's night, which made it a cool thing as well, because it was kind of a non-traditional boxing date that, with the fade of the college football bowls, which, as we both follow that as well, and we could go all day on that, on another subject, but I mean, with opt-outs and playoffs, obviously it's not what it used to be. So, to me, that night's an opportunity. So I thought, all in all, it worked out well, and we'll go through those fights together. But, my take on that was a lot of spectacular action. Then you had Sanchez, as you were just alluding to, not really doing his job, so to speak. But let's also add, but this, of course, was not a good part of the card. Christian Hammer, we know it was extremely short notice, but the guy doesn't come to fight. I mean, he really hasn't been. And I think punch stats are of limited use, but sometimes they do tell the story. And I believe I saw Dan Canobio tweet out after that fight that I think Hammer threw like the lowest amount of punches.
That's right, in the 10th round. The 10th round, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think through the fight, I think it was.
Through the whole fight?
I think it was through the whole fight. And, the naked eye test was this guy's not fighting. He was doing, some guys try to fool you with that marching forward, but just with their hands up where their hands never move. And, they're trying to BS everyone into that they're doing something, and they're just there in pure survival mode, rather than running around the ring. And you see that more often than people think. And this was, it was such short notice, but I'm sure PBC had some tough options there, but I did tweet that out before the fight. The card, I like the idea on the whole, but, when they groan, as you and I both said, he'll try, he'll throw, even though he's not a massive puncher. And, when he went out, we know it was short notice, but you couldn't have gotten a worse option than Hammer. That's where you really got to think about moving Sanchez's date. I think they're thinking showcase, and as we can both say, have a look at that fight. What kind of showcase is that? But that was the main negative. So in this case, I'm going over the negative first. It was overwhelmingly positive on the whole for me. Might as well get the other negative out of the way.
It was 180, by the way, real quick. 180 punches, 24 lands, and it tied the record for a 10-round fight, not in a good way.
Right. I mean, so that was where punch stats mattered. It reflected, what you felt like was going on there. But Sanchez has got to press a guy like that to get rid of him. As I tweeted out during the fight, I was incredulous seeing it. Why the hell was Frank Sanchez backing away from that man? I mean, the guy was not fighting. I mean, what are you backing away from? And I think you made an excellent point as I was listening to you go over all the action. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think enough people realize this and point it out. I think we are getting better amateurs now for the pros like we used to get as the scoring system has changed and the headgear went off, but that's not Frank Sanchez. He is in that style of what you were getting for a couple of decades that hurt a lot of guys as pro. And when you see him in with a Christian Hammer who's not fighting, he's just not adjusting. I mean, that's where it's kind of like it's just reflex, and he's not making the adjustment, whatever he's doing in the gym. I mean, I would assume Reynoso is trying to do some things with him in the gym. I saw him throw half-heartedly a couple of body shots, and I was thinking they were probably working on that, but it's just not ingrained with the guy. But the other negative I was getting to was, I'm going to get the negative out of the way first. I felt positive about the whole thing, but the other negative, there were two to me, was Rice and Coffey. The rematch was a great idea for this card for what they were trying to do. Good matchup. You could almost see how the first fight had a shocking result, really. You could see where the matchup really could have been good, but both guys came in out of shape. And, for Coffey, it was 7 pounds heavier than the first fight. So basically, it's not an exaggeration to say his career was on the line in this one, and he didn't come prepared. And then, Johnny Rice was, 18 pounds heavier or 15 pounds heavier than the first fight. And, he obviously did not look anything like he did in that first fight, but what he did bring was still enough to handle and also not in the best shape Coffey. And Coffey just, he was fighting at the end with his eye closing, so he didn't actually quit. But this, to me, in both fights with Rice, he just doesn't really look like a guy that really wants to be there. And, we know this is pro boxing. We have to take it as, you get in that ring. Of course, you're risking your life. All that stuff being understood, but now we're pairing fighters. He didn't turn pro till he was 30. It was going to be tough as it was. And, when the level of resistance he's gotten from Rice in the 2 fights, I see a different Coffey where he just kind of looks like, I don't know how much I want to be doing this. And, Rice, I don't know if he just felt like he handled Coffey so easily the first time that he didn't feel threatened or whatever, but still, he's got plenty of losses on his record. This is career revival, the opposite for him. He couldn't afford to risk that because he didn't look good, so he still hurt himself to some degree. I agree with everybody. The post-fight interview was funny, and that matters, but he got a clear win, no doubt about it, but he didn't help himself by coming in out of shape. As I also tweeted out during that one, I think it's worth mentioning again, having watched all those fights as they happened, it reminded me of one of those lost generation of 80s heavyweight fights, and not in a good way, but that's what for anybody younger, that's what it constantly felt like watching those guys. Like you thought this matchup's pretty intriguing, and then you saw both of them come in out of shape. You could go back to those quote unquote classics of like Tubbs Page and Witherspoon Page 1, and Tim Witherspoon coming in out of shape with Frank Bruno, could him out anyway. There were just so many of those fights over the years with those 80s heavyweights. Of course, Michael Dokes would be up and down, and all that type of stuff. When I saw both of those guys kind of squandering that spotlight, that opportunity like that, it reminded me of the 80s. So that was the not as good, and then everything else was good. I mean, the prelim fight, on regular Fox too, heavyweights, Pero and Bruzone, a great fight. Getting it on like that was for free. So let's count that as part of the same. It was part of the same card, just televised
right.
one.
There were 7 televised fights that night.
Right. I mean, you couldn't get off to a better start. Just a great heavyweight fight between undefeated prospects. I mean, just going at it, a great fight. Then you had Frank Martin. I thought he was misplaced on the card. Again, just nitpicking. I wouldn't have had Christian Hammer come in as a sub if I'm going to have Frank Sanchez in there. Almost anybody could have been better. And you got to be careful, where you're going to use Frank Sanchez. So that, and then, Frank Martin, who looked great, totally dispatched Duno in impressive fashion. Love him as a prospect, but I just thought this night worked out overall so good for the heavyweights, starting with Pero Bruzone, that the Martin fight would have been better off on the Thurman night or something like that. I mean, it seemed to me that would have made sense. But then we got to the main heavyweight pay-per-view card. I mean, I think people should be talking about it even more, even though everybody who saw it knew how good it was. I think a lot of people who didn't buy in just didn't catch it, and so they weren't saying anything. I mean, that Faust-Livesey fight was like a Foreman-Lyle 2022. I'm not saying quite on the same level, but, it was that kind of crazy action. I mean,
was
that was
silly.
the pay-per-view opener, and just both guys
banging away. You felt like it's your money worth right there. You're like, well, I'm probably going to get my money's worth now because I got 4 more fights.
I thought, it's not a stretch to say that. For $39.95, I mean, if you're a real boxing fan, it's just straight out the truth. You got your money's worth with that right there. I mean, because that was just a great heavyweight fight. It was one of the, the most exciting type of heavyweight fights you're ever going to see. And that was your opener. So one thing I think people are missing in that, and I wanted to get a chance to talk about it with you, Chris, tonight, is I think people are, and I'll put myself out on a limb on this, considering what just happened Saturday night. I think people are sleeping on Faust too much. A lot of times you can make lazy comparisons where you compare people of the same race or ethnic lines or things like that. With that understood, I don't think anybody should do that too much. It's lazy. But with that out of the way, I mean, before this fight, I thought Faust, he does fight like Vladimir Klitschko at times. He's Ukrainian as well. We know that. But just the size, the style. So, of course, then you're thinking, oh, well, we just saw him against Kalaidze, and, he got dropped heavily twice. And as you said, he was even busted up. So it's like everybody's automatically discounting him. He's only had 8 fights, going in. I mean, Kalaidze comes to fight. He's a veteran. Faust got up and got the big KO. It was stopped, but, those were heavy knockdowns he was landing. The guy's a big puncher, and he has some skills. And here's what I'm getting at. Remember, Vladimir Klitschko, when he was in distress against Ross Purity, who wasn't a guy on a high level, he quit. He got knocked out by Corey Sanders. He got knocked out by Layman Brewster. He got knocked down by DeVarrell Williamson. I mean, and even the Brewster knockout and Williamson, that was after Emmanuel Stewart got with him. Then it was only when he got with Sam Peter, who was formidable at the time, and he got dropped twice, and then he bit down, and that was a great fight. He started coming back with power shots, and then kind of the rest is history. He developed that more safety first style, but then he just didn't lose. He went on a decade run. So I'm not saying Victor Faust is going to be Vladimir Klitschko. It's just when I said with Joey Spencer does some things that remind me of Canelo on his way up. But there are things reminiscent. I'm not backing off on that either. No matter what people say, we watch prospects to evaluate them for these kind of things. I mean, that's why you're watching them. So if you conclude, I don't think this guy is going to be able to end up fighting or being any good, that's actually okay. And I think if you conclude, hey, I see some things like somebody on a higher level that this guy brings, I think it's worth pointing out. So I want to say it now because this would be the time that a lot of people are going to be in the other direction. I'm not down on Faust. I think he's going to be pretty formidable. I think that PBC, if they can keep working with him, I think he'd be a good guy to have around. And I think you made an excellent point, which I don't see enough people making, and I've been thinking the same thing you thought. I think PBC is really onto something here with this all heavyweights card where they got a lot of good action. You know, you start getting people to know these guys, and then you can just mix and match them. You know, I mean, you know, like you could, I mean, they could just go in different directions, but like it leads to one of the other fights. I think, I mean, Washington and Marizen was entertaining. I mean, it wasn't on the level of the Faust Kalazi or the Ortiz Martin, but it was an entertaining fight. Washington hit Marizen with some big shots early, and you know he keeps coming. And Washington ran out of gas, as we all saw, but it was entertaining. I mean, these guys were throwing punches. It was good action. I mean, you know, there wasn't a lot of holding or anything like that. And what I like about Demarizen that you don't see much nowadays, and one thing that makes it kind of a good mix for him is he's not a banger. He's obviously not a banger if you've seen him enough, but he brings pressure and the modern heavyweights don't do that. And I think it's actually probably for good reason that with how big the guys are nowadays, it's not that it wouldn't be effective, but it's just, it's hard to ask a human being, even a pro heavyweight, to, you know, let's say, you know, just walk through the shots of Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua and, you know, put pressure on. Might be effective, you know, might get you a win, but it's not going to be too good for your physical or mental health. And, you know, you might get your head taken off along the way. So you don't see that much anymore. Like, in other words, you know, you don't see Joe Frazier types, even with the pressure style, not even the size, just the pressure style. And I think that's really what it is. It's not that it wouldn't be effective. It's just the physical price you have to pay to do that with the size of these heavyweights nowadays. I think for most heavies makes it something that they're just not going to do. But this guy, I know his top competition at this point is Washington and the Jogba, but, you know, both of those guys can bring some pop, especially the Jogba. And he went, you know, he stopped Washington. He went all the way with the Jogba. So he does that. And he's got an amateur pedigree, so when he does it, it's not like he has no skill to fall back on. I mean, that's his style, but it doesn't mean he's a slick boxer. But he does have some amateur pedigree. He was an Olympian, Turkish Olympian. You know, he's got some amateur pedigree. So what I'm getting to is when you talk about the mix and match. Now, with Frank Sanchez, I'm not saying it wouldn't end up being a boring fight, but with Sanchez being hard to match, to me, that guy's a perfect guy to put in with Frank Sanchez because he'll try to put pressure on, and he's a high-volume heavyweight. So at least if Sanchez is going to do his typical backing off, like you said, not punching in combination, throwing one shot, at least Demarizen, I'm not saying he's going to beat him or anything like that, but at least he'll be coming at him, you know, throwing punches. At least it puts Sanchez in a better style matchup. I mean, that's something that I thought of you could at least try there. Is, you know, but I love the mix and match idea because I think, you know, Fox exposure is good, and PBC, you know, Fox does a good job of promoting those pay-per-views. Whether people like it or not, these guys are getting a lot more exposure than other fighters. And what I'm thinking is if you run 2 or 3 of these heavyweight cards a year, just mix and matching, almost the same 10 guys. And the fights are good.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because then you can really keep track of them.
Yeah, people get to know guys like that. That's their memories, and that's how they identify with fighters, even if maybe some of the guys aren't the best heavyweights. And, you know, and a lot of, especially in the U.S., I mean, people want to see heavyweight boxing. I mean, the hipsters don't like it, but, you know, the hipsters didn't build boxing. I mean, and things change, but still, I can say this without knocking any of them. You know, you're not gonna sell boxing in the U.S. with guys fighting in alphabet created divisions like 115 pounds and 108 pounds and 105. It's just not going to happen. I mean, the UFC doesn't even run those divisions for the males. whether you like UFC or not, I mean, that's for a reason. Whyte created had 8 UFC weight classes that he went with, and he's not going with these lower weight classes. So, UFC, a U.S.-based promotion, MMA, but still. This actually is where things can build if you go to this enough. Now, we don't know what the pay-per-view numbers were, but $40 was good. And, of course, the main covered the rest of it, so might as well get to the main event. I mean, Ortiz and Martin ended up being a shootout. I mean, Charles Martin scored 2 knockdowns. Luis Ortiz looked like he might be in trouble. Martin was hanging in there, and Luis Ortiz landed a bomb. He's always, since we saw him first emerge on the pro scene, he's got that powerful, straight overhand left. And he landed that, and Martin was just out on his feet, as you said. And Ortiz followed up. I mean, in boxing, the best you can have it, but it is still protect yourself at all times. And Martin was out on his feet and turned his back, and the ref didn't stop the fight. So I didn't see any problem with Luis Ortiz bombing away. And then Charles Martin somehow was able to get up, but he got dropped again. It was pretty much done after that. But that was an extremely entertaining fight. So as a main event, worked out excellent. I mean, overall, pretty good. Overall, some good matchmaking by PBC matchmakers. Just the hammer late sub with Sanchez, and even Sanchez Negron was iffy as a matchup. And then, unfortunately, Rice and Coffey, you kind of had to blame the fighters on that one. I mean, they just didn't come in properly prepared. So it wasn't a bad matchup, but the fighters didn't do their part in that one in terms of being in shape. So I think if they would have been in shape, that could have been better. But but again, with the mix and match, I mean, if I was thinking, I tweeted out, but I think it would be perfect for if you're going to do these. I mean, how about if you're going to do another one in 4 or 6 months, then for the opener you have like Khalidze fight Charles Martin. I mean,
right.
How crazy,
a lot of people were on that one. Yeah.
I mean, think of how crazy that could be. And then I don't know if Coffey, to me, looking at him, I'm wondering if he's going to continue. But again, I can't speak for the fighters, and he knows what he wants to do. So if he continues, he was a puncher before the Rice fights. I'm not saying it's going to be that way against higher opposition, but heck, Faust has only had 9 fights. I mean, to me, you bring him back.
He could be a B-side guy to get experience.
That's what I'm thinking. Maybe you use him as a B-side guy, because at this point you'd like to see a Gerald Washington retire.
I'd agree.
You and I
agree.
have said pros and cons, and I think there are some pros to it, but there's definitely some cons. I mean, it's obvious Al Heyman's philosophy is, as long as the guy wants to fight, I'm going to be loyal to the guy in terms of I'm going to give him a chance to get a payday and fight. You can look at that 2 ways. That there's some loyalty there, and if the boxer is making that personal decision, then they want that chance to make money, and Al Heyman's still going to be there for him. But the other side of that coin is you got a guy like, say, a Gerald Washington, who from the outside you would think maybe he shouldn't really be going on anymore. Do you want to encourage that? So it's kind of cuts both ways. But yeah, like you said, I mean, some of these guys could maybe come back as B-sides on these cards. And then Rice came off a win. You could have a Faust in with him. There are actually options when you get the fans to know these guys and you stick with it, as long as the fights are entertaining. Now, you can't have 5 heavyweight boring fights on there.
Just looking to have knockouts, that's it. Showcase knockouts.
Yeah, they didn't have that this time. And so, the matchmaking-wise, with what they had to work with, they kind of knew what they're doing. I say, give me more of it. I'm thinking 2 to 3 cards a year. Now, tying into what you were talking about, I mean, I understand why they're doing it, because if you look in modern boxing at Keith Thurman's TV numbers, Al Heyman, PBC, they're saying Fox, they're saying, Keith Thurman still justifies a pay-per-view in terms of how well known he is, more than, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say, more than 95% of the boxers out there, or even more.
That's very true. That's very true. Even when he had time off, a year and a half, and he fought Jose Cito Lopez, he still had a nice rating.
He's got a pay-per-view against Manny Pacquiao, which Pacquiao, one of the few breakthrough fighters, really just him and Floyd Mayweather in recent years, where you got some cultural exposure in the quote-unquote mainstream pop culture. So Thurman has, exposure, I get it. But now I got to go a little, I was just saying the positive. I really like what PBC did with the heavyweights here. I felt like I got my $39.95 worth. It's not that I want to pay, but I say, give me more of these. I mean, you want to give me these heavyweight cards, mix and match, $39.95, 2-3 times a year, I'm in.
Yeah.
But with that said, I just got to say it because you got to call it straight. I don't like this Thurman card. I mean, it's because Keith Thurman is known, but Leo Santa Cruz is in with an unknown. Barrios.
Right.
I agree with the argument we can't penalize guys too much for losses, but Barrios doesn't have that great of a body of work where we're saying, oh, Mario Barrios is in this main event with Keith Thurman, so it's okay. He's a good fighter, but
top 10 at 140 is different than top 10 at 147. That's for sure.
Yeah, and with coming off the loss, like I said, to me, there's too many classes. So even if there wasn't a 140, I mean, welterweight's too strong. I mean, just like I say it for a Conor Benn, and I'm not saying Mario Barrios isn't better than Conor Benn, but I mean, it's that type of thing. Like,
no, I hear what you're saying.
You just can't break through. I mean, there's too many good welterweights out there. So right, he's not a legit top 10. Thurman's not just from inactivity. Now, if he comes back with a win, and I think I know how Transnational would look at it. He's already got the body of work, the ability. He's going to jump back in at a good spot in the rankings with a win, with a decent win. But right now, you do have to enforce the inactivity standards. I mean, I'm all in favor of that. And he just hasn't fought, for 2 years. So he's not even really there. I mean, Josecito Lopez, I mean, he can surprise you, but I think Abel Ramos has been fighting well. I mean, I don't think at this stage, he's going to be able to do anything there. For me, now, that one, I think the weight that you pointed out correctly, I think it is about the price, and they're waiting. They probably wanted to see the Ortiz numbers. Yeah. I think it's almost obvious they're experimenting with a monthly Fox pay-per-view, and they're trying to figure out what the price point's going to be. For me, now, I think when it comes to something like the way that Thurman card is, you've got Ramirez, Pedraza the same night. DAZN's going to run an okay card where you wouldn't get real excited about it. But again, if you're on the $100 monthly, which is proven yearly, which is proven to be a decent deal if you're a boxing fan, as long as they run enough fights, I'm okay with it. So, I'm averaging out there to less than 10 a month. I mean, I'm gonna watch, there it's that, you and I have talked about that time commitment, so I'm going to be looking at it like, if
that's
I want
a hell
to
of a commitment, February 5th.
Right.
Hell of a
right.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that as a fan, hardcore observer, commentator. I'm looking at that and saying, if my eyes only have so much time and I've got a DAZN card and I've got an ESPN card, am I going to pay them to even further saturate my time with the Thurman card where I'm on that one? Everybody can do what they want to do, but I've changed sometimes on these as it come up, but I'm not seeing it right now. I'm just not seeing that one right now.
They haven't announced the price yet, so it's like, if it's full price, they better offer it like they normally do in the theater. Because if I go to the theater for $22, then I might have a different mentality. But it doesn't even seem like none of the fights that night seem like a take the night off of work at the brewery, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Take the night off. Maybe I wouldn't even go to the movie theater because I'd be working, you know?
Right. And then here's where it becomes a problem, too, though, is like, let's say that one was in a theater, and this is what I think hurts them. You know, if I have the Zone and you know, the ESPN Plus fights, even when they're on ESPN, they put them on Plus now. So I got to watch those on my phone. I mean, I'm going to pay to go to the theater while I'm watching the DAZN card.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The ESPN card on my
right.
phone at the same. Now, we all do that, hardcore fans, but to pay to do it, that's where I'm like, you know, I have had times where the pay-per-view fight was interesting enough to me where then I paid for it and said, this fight just really is that interesting to me, so I know I'm going to pay even though I have free options. But, you know, Thurman
right.
and Barrios, I don't think I like Keith Thurman, but I don't think that's going to do it for me. I just think my attention, I'm going to say, well, I'll focus on the ESPN card and the DAZN card that night, and I'll just have to catch up on delay with the Thurman card or something, because I don't feel like there's something there that I'm really going to miss. That's going to be
just to go further too, it's not like there's sure in like LA or something. I'm sure some bars will do it, or some places that always get them, but that's not going to be a pay-per-view that's going to be in the bars either. So theoretically, you could go to the bar, pay $10, and then have your phone and watch the other fights, but it's not a big enough fight to be in the bars. So. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of stuck on that. You wish it would be on a Fox main event, this fight, because we've said it before. Like, personally, I'll just speak for myself. I don't mind being out what will be 2.5 years to come back and fight Barrios. And I think if Barrios is ever going to fight one of these top guys at welterweight, this is the guy to fight right now, because it's like, who knows what Thurman has left after 2.5 years. He's going to be rusty no matter what, somewhere in there. So the actual comeback fight, I don't have a problem with it. I get it. But like you said, the co-feature is just a showcase to try to get Leo, you know, get going for the rest of the year. So I hear you. I definitely hear you on that one, man.
But you make a good point. I mean, if you were to take the Thurman comeback fight against Barrios in a vacuum, it's a good fight, but
sure.
And you do remind me, because Keith Thurman does draw some ratings. It seems misplaced. Like, it would seem this would be a good one to have him just come back on regular Fox. I mean, I guess there can still be a regular Fox fight because the prelims were on Fox, as you pointed out correctly. They were not
going to be one
regular Fox. So I guess it still could happen. I mean, it doesn't look promising, but since it's still feasible, you would think, couldn't they just bring Keith Thurman back on Fox? But it has to do with what these guys are getting paid and what they get from advertising.
Right.
So I don't know, but some of this is not making sense. But again, that to me personally is where I like the heavyweight thing for the $40, because for myself, like let's say you had a night like that February 5th, and it was all heavyweights that I had to pay for it. I said, like, well, I got a 140-pound fight, and I got a 154-pound fight. You know, Smith and Vargas between two guys who, let's face it, can't punch at the high level. Or I got these heavyweights. Then I might get the heavyweights. But I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm going to get the Keith Thurman comeback fight when I've got these other fights, and just even with the time commitment, not to mention and adding the money to it. I mean, if I was getting it on Fox, I'd flip back and forth, but to pay for it while I'm flipping back and forth from other fights, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I definitely hear that. Any other items that you'd like to talk about? We do have a Showbox card where kind of seems we know what's going to happen in the main event, but the other two fights are kind of interesting. Showbox, does their either one loss or no loss thing. I think these guys are like 80-0 or something like that. But I do think the main events, we kind of know who's going to win. But kind of interesting fights there. Any other items that you want to discuss?
Just mentioning the Showbox. I do think you're right. It's good seeing the records, but I think they've dropped off a bit. from their initial concept where they were really putting guys that were pretty evenly matched in and just having some good fights. It's kind of descended a little bit more now into like which we see too much of in boxing on all networks, just, giving somebody exposure. So I'm a little down on that. One item that is worth, since it was way more boxing news than it should have been this week. I mean, people should know better with the alphabets, but for some reason, much of boxing Twitter, as you saw, as well as I did, Chris, decided to take this Hrgović IBF eliminator stuff seriously. I mean, sure, Hrgović has amateur pedigree. He's a big guy with power. He's fought absolutely no one. He's not even in the transnational top 10 because he hasn't fought anybody.
Right.
I mean, and that's just independent people doing the rankings. So, so even though I'm not saying the guy doesn't have some talent, but like, why does anybody have to fight Filip Hrgović? I mean, his promoter needs to be out there getting him fights with real opposition, even if they're lesser known guys, but somebody that brings something to the table. I mean, that's just alphabet nonsense, and nobody's. I mean, they're all horrible, but the IBF has put forth as bad a mandatory challengers out there as anyone. So, and let's even play it out further with how stupid this is. First of all, it's stupid on a lot of levels, namely the alphabet level, but let's even break it down further why it's stupid. One reason was Hrgović fought nobody. The next reason outside of that would be, okay, let's play this out further. So supposedly if this fight was going to get you to be the IBF mandatory, I mean, first of all, Fury's the real champ, recognized as the lineal champ, recognized, by the ring as champ, recognized as transnational by the champ, okay? So it's a mandatory to not fight the real champ, all right? Then let's say we know there's alphabet fans out there. I don't know why they exist, but they do. So for alphabet fans, even if you're an alphabet fan for whatever crazy reason, so let's play it out for the alphabet fans where it still doesn't make sense. So you're right now the IBF heavyweight champion is Alexander Usyk. You already know he's got a contracted rematch with Anthony Joshua. So you're not going to be Usyk's next fight. Anthony Joshua is going to be his next fight. Okay, so you're on the shelf there, and then Usyk, which he talks about fighting for the glory and that, and you know what? He might be telling the truth. So let's say he's telling the truth and he gets by Joshua. He's not looking to fight you. He's looking to fight Tyson Fury, the real champ. So,
right.
You're not getting that fight there.
It's 2023. Long story short, right?
So then people say, well, you can wait and try to get a buyout, and if not, wait. Yeah, right. So you're not fighting. Who knows when you're fighting again and getting a payday? Then the belt could be dumped. I mean, if the IBF gets in and tries to enforce the ridiculous mandatories, Usyk could just dump the belt, or Joshua if he wins the rematch. They could dump the belt depending what they want to do, and then you say, oh well, you get a chance to be IBF champion. If you're going to fight, fighting somebody else who's unknown when everybody knows you're not the real champ. I mean, it's just the whole thing's silly. People shouldn't be taking it seriously. I mean, when boxers are not doing it, they're actually, in this case, showing common sense, because it doesn't mean automatically they're saying, oh, I can beat Hrgović or I'm scared of Hrgović. It's just Hrgović hasn't fought anybody. He doesn't bring any money to the table. I mean, why are you going to fight him? I mean, there's just, let him become legit top 10 and beat some people. So it's just that's where things just get silly. You should just be looking at fighters in the legit top 10, and hopefully they're fighting each other. But Hrgović just isn't there yet. He hasn't fought the opposition. He hasn't, as I tweeted out, he's fought, which is the truth. He's fought Alan Babic level of opposition. Let her. They're both Croatian, let them have the Croatian showdown between Babic and Hrkovic. Babic said he wants it quite a few times. So do that. So I just thought that was a bunch of non-news, really.
Was Pulev was the IBF Mando last time, correct?
Right. Now, and let's say, let's look. We know how the promoters operate, and it's not just Eddie Hearn. So the way they manipulate the alphabets like that is, when Pulev becomes the IBF mandatory, and Pulev is 39 years old, and when he dreadfully failed when he stepped up against Klitschko, Hearn and Joshua know that. So then you sell a fight where you can justify it to these alphabet fans by saying, "Oh, it's an IBF mandatory. We've got to do that," And then you take the payday and you sell it as the IBF mandatory. Hey, look, I don't like that they were doing it, but some fans who didn't like PBC pointed this out. But this part is true. They were, billing Martin and Ortiz as an IBF eliminator, which I agree that's stupid. I'm not buying Ortiz and Martin because they put IBF eliminator on it. I mean, I don't care about that. I don't think 99.9% of the people do. I mean, if your decision to pull the trigger on that pay-per-view was because it was for an IBF eliminator, you need help. Something's wrong with you. You believe in the Easter Bunny or something like that. I mean, so they all. My point there though is they all do it, and it's just for that little part of the fan base that buys into that. So they figure that they can sell fights that way. Like I keep getting back to, because I like that he said it because it's the truth. Like Steven Espinoza has even said, it's just a promotion. The alphabet stuff's just a promotional tool. It's not real. It's just a promotional tool. So yeah, they'll use it as the promotional tool when it works for them, and when it doesn't, then they'll ignore it.
They'll rip it.
Yeah. Right.
Then they're like, this is nonsense.
Like, when Hearn didn't want to have Josh Warrington fight Galahad again, then the IBF featherweight belt didn't matter anymore. It always matters. In other words, now it matters again. See, now that Kiko Martinez, this is just announced today. Right. Now that Kiko Martinez has it, fight. Right. Now all of a sudden he needs that IBF belt back. now it matters. So it's really comical. And please, any fans out there, I just implore you, if you buy into that, just don't. I mean, I think some of the fans, and boxing needs every fan it can get, but I think some of the younger fans, and it's actually, and you like to get on this subject, Chris, and I think it's correct. Like, it was when boxing writers, most of them, when they stopped knocking the alphabets, they stopped calling them out on being a joke, that I think you had some of the, and then networks were all promoting it and stuff. You had some younger fans that, like, that's all they've seen. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know a counter narrative to the alphabets. So I think that's what I attribute some of it to. That when you got there wasn't critical boxing journalism like there used to be about that. And as that went on for like a generation, and with the networks promoting it like crazy, because remember at one time, you remember this, Chris. Remember one time HBO was ignoring the alphabets for a while. Then they switched. Yeah,
true.
But like, in other words, some people have been through where HBO ignored the alphabets. When the boxing magazines were big, and the writers all used to ridicule the alphabets. The daily papers when newspapers were big, they all had boxing writers regularly who they knocked the alphabets. So, you had a counter narrative for a long time until, let's say, the last 20 years or so. But if you're a 25-year-old boxing fan, I mean, then you've been bombarded with that stuff since you were 5 years old. So that's kind of the way I see some of that, at least.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, John, as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Chris, thanks for having me. Just want to shout out, anybody wants to give me a follow on Twitter or follow my stuff on Twitter, it's John Onreinhofer at Real John E. Law. So just get that out there because it's always fun to get a chance to interact with everybody about this stuff.
No doubt. All right, you take it easy. Have yourself a good night.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Have a good night.
All righty. Boxing man, Mind John there, giving us his takes. And I did get, hey, if anybody, and I'm not talking to you, Portland, but if anybody's on there right now, which people are, press 1 if you want to join in, okay? Press 1. But someone messaged me, I don't think you understand what John was just trying to say. So the big thing on boxing Twitter today was Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker, ducked Hrgović, right? Because they didn't take the mandatory eliminator spot, right? Well, they didn't say we'll fight for that mandatory spot, right? What he's saying is Hrgović shouldn't have been ranked that high to even have this happen, right? Because who has he fought to be the number one contender? That's what he's saying. He's not trying to rip him as a fighter or what he's going to do at the heavyweight division, but the reason why it's nonsense, you can say it's nonsense that these guys are turning down the fight. That's your own opinion. But he shouldn't even be in a position. What has he earned to get to the number one spot to be the mandatory, to get a title fight? Why would he get a shot at the lineal title of Fury or the shot at Usyk? Who does he beat to get that? So therefore, he didn't even deserve to be in that spot. That's why the rankings are silly, is the whole point. And then if you're Parker or if you're Luis Ortiz, if Ortiz has a chance to fight a bigger name for more money, why wouldn't you take that? Ortiz may have 1 or 2 fights, 3 fights left, period. And Parker's not a young spring chicken, right? He doesn't have a ton of fights left. So why would you fight for less money? And then people will say, well, why doesn't Al or why doesn't, a representative for Parker just outbid those people? Well, then they're overpaying for a guy. That whole risk reward, it just doesn't line up. It doesn't line up. Now, this would be a 50-50 more than likely, right? Split, because neither of them are, nobody has the title. But, well, people have the title, and this is to become the mandatory. And then, so you win it, okay, cool, you beat them, let's say. Let's say Ortiz beats them. For less money than you get fighting Ruiz or other fighters. And then you're not even going to get, because of what he explained after, you're not going to get a shot till 2023. So, and if they're all together, I guess let's say Usyk beats AJ and Fury beats whether it's Whyte or somebody. That's probably going to be a 2-fight deal. Maybe it's not. But if the fight does good and it's a competitive fight, no matter who wins, they probably have a rematch, maybe. So, it's just silly. It's silly. Why would Joseph Parker and Ortiz take that fight? But if you're going to sit there and say they ducked him, when you got a chance to make more money, that's not ducking. Ruiz is a better fighter at this moment, more advanced, more experienced, more pedigree at the pro. That's not ducking anybody. If he's waiting to fight Ruiz potentially, or maybe a trilogy with Wilder, whatever, it's bigger money and a better name right now. That it's not ducking. A lot of people would pick Ruiz over Ortiz. A lot of people would pick that. So it's not duck. How can you say you're ducking someone when you're taking on, at this point, at this stage of the career, a potentially harder fight? It's not ducking. But like I said, what would he, what's he in that spot for anyway, is the point. So hopefully I clarified that. Maybe you think Parker's a boring fighter, or you don't like PBC fighters, so you're dumping on Ortiz. But, boy shouldn't have even been in the damn, number 1 or number 2 or number 5 rankings. How did he get to that ranking is the point. That's the whole point. Now, I mentioned the main event with Nunez. Luis Nunez. I think, he's taking on Aridia, something like that. He's going to beat him. That seems like a clear favorite. I mean, I see ProBoxingOdds.com, by the way, a great site because it just collects everything. But the lowest I see Nunez at is a minus 750. Some folks even got him minus 1,200. So that's plus 775. The lowest is 5-1. So that was my point with that. I'm not saying it's a shitty fight for Nunez. He's a prospect, so it is what it is. But the other two fights, I do kind of push back on what John said on this individual one. Castillo and Aroniason, I think it is. Castillo, he's got some pedigree from the Dominican. There's actually a couple Dominicans on this one. Castillo, we've seen him. He actually, I think maybe it was his second U.S. He had a U.S. debut. I can't remember if it was this last one or the fight before, because I know he beat former title challenger. Yeah, he never had the title. Oh, the Burgos, Juan Carlos Burgos, who's obviously aged, but Castillo, has like over 400 amateur fights. You know what I mean? So, in Aroniozen, I think it's Aranosian, something like that. That dude has a bunch of amateur fights too, and I like the fight. I think that's a good fight. And then you have De Los Santos and Foster, Edwin De Los Santos. He's from the Dominican as well. When you look at these fights, like we'll just look at the odds. So Aroniason and Castillo. Castillo is a slight favorite. Like, it's not a pick'em, but it's close. Minus 175, minus 195. So it ranged from there. And then, I can't find a plus 200. I see plus 115, plus 165. So to me, that's damn near a 50-50. And then on the other side of the things, William Foster, he's a slight favorite too. Minus 162, minus 175. I think minus 190 is the highest. Once again, I don't see a plus 200. And so if you're within, if your opponent is below a 2-1, in boxing that's close to a 50-50. Now, they may not turn out that way, but I'm saying on paper, the triple header, I'm interested in 2 out of those 3 fights. I'll definitely say that. I think that's pretty a fair assessment. So, and I'll always give Showbox a chance just because it's been so consistent and steady. There has been ups and downs. It's not that I disagree with what he was saying, John, because it has been up and down. I think they only had like 6 of them last year. So there has been ups and downs. It's not as strong as it used to be, I agree. But this particular card, 2 out of the 3 fights, I do have some interest in. I definitely have some interest in. So let me know if you're ready to go here, 503 Josue out in Portland. Just to follow up what we were saying about that undercard heading into the Thurman Barrios. This is from Jake Donovan on BoxingScene.com. Jesus Ramos versus Vladimir Hernandez is being eyed for February 5th on that undercard, so it would be in the Fox prelim. And that day, much like there was, I think it was college basketball, it's Big East basketball this last go-around on Fox on New Year's Day. Now, the ratings of both show you that they were going head-to-head with some high-profile college football games. The Sugar Bowl head-to-head, the Rose Bowl, the end of the Rose Bowl, I believe it was. So they were going, there was a lot of attention. Technically, I think the NBA played that night too. I think they did. But either way, it was, there was some intent. So the ratings weren't good because of that. And someone's pushing back on that. Okay. Press 1, because the only way you can listen right now is on your phone. So you could press 1 if you want to join in. We could talk about what you're messaging me over for. He's just dogging the rating, how it's a shitty rating. And in fact, the rating was, like I said, I'm not saying it was a great rating. I'm saying that they're going to have what they're going to do is for this Fox prelim, which is on normal Fox, they're having a lead-in, and Jake says that day, which is normal, at least a doubleheader on Fox for college basketball now. There's going to be a triple header, so it'll probably start at like 11 noon Eastern, 11 here, if they're going to fit 3 basketball games in. So it's going to be a triple header of Big East that leads into the Fox prelim, which is usually a 2-hour card when they do a pay-per-view, just like this last one. And I was okay with what we got in that card. I'm perfectly okay with the Fox main event to have what they had in the main event, and then to have that really good heavyweight fight, prospect fight. I was good with that. You're not going to hear me complain too much about that. Now, here's my point, okay? Here's my point on this one, since you won't press 1 and join in, and you probably just hung up, actually, now that I see it. But just to give you factual data on this, you're correct. The prelims on Fox, which is a little bit earlier than primetime, did 730,000 the 2-hour stretch. I don't know what it peaked at, okay? But what I'm pointing at, this person is saying, I'm assuming it's a he, that they even had a lead-in and they couldn't do shit with it. The college basketball lead-in did 278, so under 300,000, and the boxing did 730. So you're just trying to, take away from it. When you say that they even had a lead-in and they couldn't do shit with it, that sounds like it's 1 million people watching that college basketball game, which in a couple of months it will be. Because, not even a couple of months. They won't be going against some of the top bowl games, the Sugar Bowl, and some of the biggest names in the sport of college football. They won't be going head-to-head with them, so those ratings will improve. But 278, I don't know what that peaked at either, but let's just call it 300. It over doubled it, 730 to 278. So when you talk about the lead-in, at least have some facts rather than just be, just be knee-jerk. But my point was, long story short, I had a point here, but I got distracted. Jesus Ramos will be taking on, and I hope this sticks, Vladimir Hernandez. Okay? And Vladimir Hernandez, was the guy who just was on Fox, and he came up with a big win. Okay? I'm not trying to say this guy's, the guy, but he was a heavy underdog. And I'm reading this on BoxingScene.com. Jake Donovan, he beat J-Rock. October. Yes, it was October. So this guy just beat J-Rock. He's kind of, in a sense, a veteran guy. But he was solid. He beat J-Rock in at the point of being, what is he now, 16-0 or 17-0? I think this is a good fight. I'm not calling it some great fight for Jesus Ramos, but as a prospect, and he's actually moving to 54 now. And we all kind of thought, man, he's a big dude. And Jake even says he's prepared to make a run at 154. And I think that makes sense for his career. He's a young dude. He's only 20 years old. So he's going to grow in that weight. We were all kind of wondering how long he could stay at welterweight. Well, it looks like he's going to go at 54. There's plenty of fights for him there. So that will, on paper, right now, that's actually going to be the main event on the prelim on Fox. And as in a month from now, that's on the weekend. That's not. That's on the 2-week break from the conference final to the Super Bowl. That's pushed back a week now because there's 17 games instead of 16 in the NFL. For those who don't know, I'm sure the UK people are like, what are we talking about? Yeah, they know what we're talking about. But so instead of it being on the last Saturday, usually that's what it was always, the last Saturday in January, it's now the first Saturday of February, if that makes sense. So February 5th, right? So they're going to have it says right here, a triple header of college basketball, Big East college basketball that day. So by that time, in a month, that'll get a better rating. It won't be below 300,000. I'm not saying it's going to do 2 million. I'm just saying that's going to be a better lead-in. Once again, a prospect going against a vet who's a real fighter, and it's not just a 100% showcase. And Vladimir Hernandez coming off a win over Julian Williams, that's not a bad fight. I'll take that. Now, I did hear today from 2 different sources, one of them being Deuce, what's up, Deuce, that that's kind of in between, that might not be as finalized as we had hoped. But that's kind of previewing the show box. All right, let's go up to Portland, 503 Josue. Portland, man, what's going on? Let's hear it, buddy.
Mexicanos al grito de guerra, el acero aprestad y el brigón, y retiembla en sus centros la tierra al sonoro rugir del cañón, y retiembla en sus centros la tierra al sonoro rugir del cañón. Niño patria, tus sienes de oliva, de la paz el arcángel divino, que en el cielo tu eterno destino por el dedo de Dios se escribió. Mas si osare un extraño enemigo profanar con sus plantas tu suelo, pienso patria querida que el cielo un soldado en cada hijo te dio, un soldado en cada hijo te dio. Mexicanos al grito de guerra, el acero aprestad y el bridón, y retiembla en sus centros la tierra al sonoro rugir del cañón. Y retiembla en sus centros la tierra al sonoro rugir del cañón.
Hey, yo, what up, Chris? Hey, yo, I'm doing good here in cold-ass Oregon, but I hope you're doing good, Chris. Happy New Year. How you doing, Chris? How's everything, brother?
Boy, it's cold-ass Minneapolis, dude. It's -9 right now.
Oh, man, dude, I'm sorry to hear that. And also, too, Chris,
it's going to get down to -18 tonight, dude. -18
Holy
tonight.
crap.
Yeah.
Damn. See, it's not it's not actually that cold over here. It actually got a little warmer, but it's still cold. But man, it doesn't ever get to the negatives over here, man. I feel for you. But also, too, Chris,
funny,
I want to say I hope you feel.
What's funny on Saturday it might be 25 degrees though. So that's Minnesota for you, dude. It's got a high of 30 on Saturday too. So it's going to be every which way, you know.
Yeah, and also too, Chris, I wanted to wish you. Hope you're feeling better from last time. I know you were feeling bad the last time I talked to you, man. And it seems like you're in good spirits. So, man, shout out to you, man, for holding it down. You holding down a show even with the COVID, man. So, shout out to you, Chris. And but yeah, bro, let's get into it. And also too, but before I get into it, this last pay-per-view, I want to say I did not buy it. I just kind of couldn't sucker down to it. I'm sorry.
No,
even though I wanted to buy it, but like I just hear, I don't know. To me, it wasn't worth it. Just the main event was not pay-per-view worthy to me. Just the Charles Martin, it being Charles Martin. Even though I did see the highlights and I saw that he did score. What did he score there? Two knockdowns there for him. And but man, I don't know. But Ortiz looks like he got it done.
I was on the fence.
You know what I mean?
Decided to go for it, but I totally get it.
Dude, I had the cold sweats.
The card was bomb,
I was right there.
The card was bomb.
Bro. And,
the card was bomb. The card was bomb, though. But I was on the fence.
The card was bomb. Did you like it?
Oh yeah, I did. It was really good. Like 5 out of the 7 fights popped off, but I get why. I like I said, I went down to the wire and ended up getting home. And since it's on Fight TV, the pay-per-view, I watched it with someone, so I only spent $20 on it. But I ordered it after I got home from work at 12 o'clock at night. So I hear you. Anybody kind of wondering if they wanted it, there's no reason to be sorry. I get it. I totally get it. I get it.
Yeah, to me, it was like I could just pass on this one. I go do something else. You know what I mean? I just in all honesty too. I mean, it gave me something to kind of listen to, like podcast wise on it. On a Monday, so I was able to listen to people's their live chats. You know what I mean? Their live fight companions or whatever you want to call it. So that was kind of cool. So you know what I mean? I did get to hear the reviews and pretty much I did get to hear shout out to the Boxing Boys. What's the name? Doomy, the Doomsday holding it down for Ness. And also too, I hope Ness is feeling well. I don't know what's going on, but I hope he's feeling well. I hope he's in good spirit. But yeah, man, shout out to Doomy who's holding it down. So I got to hear that review there.
I don't know.
He just hasn't been on the show. I mean, obviously Doom. What's his name? Alex Doomsday. He's been holding the show down, but he's just been given, saying that. I remember the last time he was saying that he was going to give up an update on Monday, but I mean, Monday's passed. So, but I mean, it's been Alex on the show the whole time. So I don't, I'm just hoping, he's doing good. You know what I mean? So I don't, Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know Ness personally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know Ness personally, but I mean, I listen to other people's shows. You know what I mean? Like so many other shows, but yeah, man, and but yeah. So shout out to I was able to listen to that on Monday, but the reviews were. I mean, some of the fights were good. I got to see that there was a fight between 2 fighters. I forgot their names, but there was like a back and forth fight where both fighters scored knockdowns in each round, like 1 and 2, like it was pretty insane.
There was 3 in the first round. There was 3 knockdowns apiece.
3 knockdowns, yeah, man, that was insane stuff. And I was able to watch that. I mean, I did see the highlights to that. That looked pretty cool. But as far as that, I didn't really I didn't really get to watch it. But yeah, man. But also, Chris, I wanted to see if I could review last year. I wasn't able to be on last week's show. So if I could review the fights, if that's cool. But yeah, man, let's start with it. Let's start with Fighter of the Year. Obviously, this is a no-brainer to me or to anybody. I think if you know boxing, if you're a realist, you got to go Canelo Alvarez on this one. The guy's fought his ass off. What can I say? What he got? A tune-up and B.J. Saunders, and then Caleb Plant. I mean, that's pretty good in my opinion. He took 2 undefeated fighters. He took their O's. Walked out with the belts, took their belts. So I mean, it's a good year for Canelo, and shout out to Canelo for having some fun over the weekend. I believe that was New Year's night. Canelo getting drunk. His English, like you said, Chris, his English is getting better. He does understand. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so he's really getting into like his American side in a way, you know what I mean? So, shout out to Nello. And also trainer of the year, goes to Eddie Reynoso. He had a great, Canelo's fighter or Canelo's trainer. I mean, he had a good year too with his fighters. Pretty much he, scored all wins.
Oscar Valdez.
So shout out to Eddie. What's up? Yeah, Oscar Valdez, the knockout win over that. It was a good year for Reynoso. Shout out to Eddie. Hopefully, he's already off to a good start this year with with a win with Frank Sanchez. So shout out to Eddie. And also on the promoter of the year, I want to give it to Eddie Hearns. I want to say that usually the zone fights are more quality to me. I like how Eddie Hearns doesn't have he has the guts to put his A-side fighter, his franchise fighter, his moneymaker in a way, his cash cow, into a dangerous fight. Like, he's willing to do that. So, Eddie Hearns, I got to say, is a guest promoter of the year for me. And I think I like most of these DAZN fights. A lot of them were great, in my opinion, and plus because I got the subscription, so I didn't really,
I think Golden Boy
I wasn't really worried.
Year on DAZN, though. I think Golden Boy had a better year on DAZN than Eddie.
You think so? Oh, well, I mean,
Eddie just got on DAZN. Eddie literally just got on DAZN, for the UK. Oh,
for the UK. Oh, but that's up. But for the U.S., he's been here since the opening, right?
Oh yeah, I'm just saying this year I think the better cards were Golden Boy on DAZN rather than Eddie. But overall, Eddie just got into the UK on DAZN in the fall officially. You know how he's not on Sky anymore. So that's all I'm saying. It doesn't have anything to do with if I don't think Golden Boy had a better year promoting than Eddie. So I get what you're saying. I'm saying on DAZN, I thought the better product was them, though.
Oh, okay. But yeah, man. But I don't know. Eddie Hearns gets promoter of the year for me. But Golden Boy, like you said, Golden Boy did put out pretty good fights at the end. So I really did like that Jaime Munguia fight with Rosado. That was a pretty damn good card there. And also I want to say fight of the year. Goes to the heavyweights, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3. This one, I liked how the chapters closed. That's it. I think in my opinion, Deontay Wilder, gave it his all in that fight. It was a back and forth. They both scored knockdowns till Tyson Fury, was able to finish them. So fight of the year it goes to Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder 3. So that one. And also upset of the year for me was Sandor Martin versus Mikey Garcia, because to me that was a huge upset, man. And also because Mikey Garcia showed up and Mikey showed up so out of shape, and I don't know, that just it really upset me more. You know what I mean? So I got to give it to Sandor Martin. But shout out to Sandor Martin for actually showing up and looking good. You know what I mean? So he made a real good fighter look ordinary. So shout out to him. And also
shout out to the Spaniards, dude. Shout out to the Spaniards, dude. Kiko Martinez too.
Yeah, right. Kiko Martinez too, man.
They're like, screw this, man. The Spaniards are here, dude. We're here.
Yeah, shout out to Español over there, Spain over there, man. And KO of the year, to me, has to go to Tyson Fury over Deontay Wilder, 11th round KO. How he just fell like that. I thought, like I said, that the chapter's closed. That I thought, these are the giants. This is the kings of boxing. I think, in my opinion, the casual fans weight class. I think, in my opinion, where all the casual fans come out. So, in my opinion, KO of the year definitely has to go to Tyson Fury. You know what I mean? So, so that one, and also for fun, I thought event of the year had to go to Julio Cesar Chavez versus Hector Camacho Jr. I thought this fight, to me, I'm Mexican. I think it pulled me in. You know what I mean? I thought the event was cool. Obviously, his sons fought on the card too. I think they both scored losses. Chavez Jr. upsetting us all with that one. Really failing me. In all honesty, I could, for boxing at least, you know what I mean? Like, he should have been able to do it, but man, I don't know. He's you know what I mean? He's something that Chavez, and but to me, for fun, so that gets event of the year. I remember it was pay-per-view. I remember I saw it with family. Like, everybody wanted to see it, so it was, it was a cool night that day. And
How much was that
and plus,
was that like $29?
If I remember, I don't remember, but I want to say, I mean, if it's pay-per-view, I want to say at least 50. I'm gonna ballpark it there. But I don't remember what it was, but I remember it was, but it was pay-per-view though for sure. And but yeah, man, and but also I wanted to mention that I also liked the main event, which was pretty cool because I remember Canelo gave us a show. I remember, he got involved. He went into the corner, and it was just a cool moment. I thought, in my opinion, just kind of something, just something legendary for this Chavez Sr. You know what I mean? Like, kind of passing, in my opinion, if you saw it live, it was like kind of passing the torch a little bit, because there was a moment there where, they were both showing a lot of respect to each other. And I don't know, that, like, in a way, it looked like Chavez Sr. was like, looking at him like, I wish you were my son, like, that's my opinion.
Didn't Senior rip his headgear off? Didn't Senior rip his headgear
he wanted
off with the fight?
Yeah, in the last round, yeah. Yeah, in the last round, he wanted to go at it with Hector. Yeah, the last round, he wanted to say, let's go, but Hector didn't want to. He didn't want to do it. I don't know. I thought Senior was capable of doing it. You know what I mean? I hadn't. It was Mexico. Let's do it. You know what I mean? And but Hector, he didn't feel comfortable. So, but Senior, hey, shout out to Senior. It shows you a real it just shows you his real heart, man. I think if he would. Like, if he really would want, like, he can, like, I think he would challenge, like, a real boxer out there, in my opinion. But yeah, and also, but yeah, as far as that was a fun event to me. So that got the event of the year for me. But also, I want to say prospect of the year. You know what? I don't know if this qualifies, but I want to say Brandon Lee kind of sticks out to me the most.
Sure, yeah.
I thought, he looked good. I believe he's in a KO streak.
Yeah, nasty.
So, but yeah, so he's been looking good. So the kid, and then he's been staying really active. And so I really like that. Because I've been hearing his name usually, in the boxing outlets. All these boxing outlets, I at least mention him frequently. You know what I mean? No one ever, he's not like Gary Russell Jr. You know what I mean? Like, he just disappears for his annual fight. So. But prospect of the year goes to Brandon Lee, and also like a grade this year. I would give it a B plus. Even though Canelo, I thought a lot of great stuff did happen. It's just that all these pay-per-views. I think in my opinion, man, there's something really wrong with boxing. Like, to me, that's a lot. I don't know, man. This is a lot of pay-per-views, man. And also to listen to other people's take that how much they've spent, because all of us are, boxing junkies. Let's face it. You know what I mean? We're all spending this cash, and but man, you really think about it at the end of the day, and it's just like, holy crap. But yeah, just because.
When we started from October,
especially in October,
when it
started
was a lot.
Especially during the holiday time, I'm not gonna kid, man. During the holiday times with the family and all that, it's just, oh man. But hey, this is what we live for, man.
If it's spread out throughout the year, that's different. Mm-hmm. But they hit us with some heat with pay-per-views since October. Since Fury Wilder, we got ambushed, no doubt about it.
And especially Wilder, I think that pay-per-view was like $80, right? I'm not mistaken. It was like $79.95 or something like that, and. But yeah, like I'm saying, like they got us, man. But like I said, we're boxing junkies. This is what we live. Like Canelo says, man, no boxing, no life, man. So this is what it is. And also before I finish up the tally here, I want to say Pendejo of the year has to go to Chavez Jr. once again for 2021. You know what I mean? Like, dude, hopefully, man, he's got one. He can redeem himself with one freaking fight, one effing fight. Dude, if that fight happens, I'm obviously going to back him up. That's actually a Paul fight that I will buy. But man, this is the only way he could redeem himself and erase all his wrongs and move forward. And
there's no way that would erase all his wrongs. There's no way.
To me, he will. To me, it does, man. To me, it does. He'll erase all his wrongs with this one, man. Because oh my God, dude. Because he cannot lose to this guy. And it's one thing with Silva.
Yeah, I still can't get the image out of my head of him eating cereal in his drawers, a week out before the fight. I just can't get that out of my head.
He's a spoiled kid, man. He's a silver spoon, kid, man. I mean, what can you? I mean, his dad's right there telling him techniques. He ain't here. He wants to, eat his Fruity Pebbles. Yeah. I mean, right, his biggest fight of his career. And plus, do you remember he went swimming? Like he just went, he dipped in his pool right after. It's just so funny, man. But Chavez, to me, he has a lot of making up to do. Obviously, Pendejo this year, but like I said, he wants Paul.
Can't even go to the gym. Remember, Freddie had to go at times to work on the bag and shit. Or in the gloves and the mitts. He had to go. They were doing it in the living room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he wasn't going to training camp, and I remember that. Yeah.
Move this couch a little bit, and we'll just set up.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
cool. Yeah, bro. But yeah, man. Like I said, he definitely couldn't right his wrongs with one fight. To me, obviously, other people's got their own opinion, right? But this one to me, if he loses to Paul, man, I don't know, bro. He is just like, I can't have no more Pendejos of the year. It's just that he's gonna have to take this, this whole like decade, like I don't know, man. And just to me, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, it's really, yeah. So, but I would like that fight. That's a pay-per-view I would definitely buy. So yeah, man. And also, before I get out of here, I always want to mention that I do like this Jesse Vargas Liam Smith fight happening February 5th. I just want to mention that real fast because that's a solid fight. I like Vargas moving. He's moving up, right? So that's a good fight to me. Canelo opponent. Fight. Let's see, style, man. This is, British, England versus Mexico. So I like this one, man. And, them Brits come out, man. So it's, because they're also like Mexicans, man. They dig their, they love their boxing, man. It's just, it's in their culture, you know what I mean? It's in their spirit. So, I mean, I dig that. So, and also too, man, but before I get out of here, man, it's sad. I don't know. I've been hearing a bunch of those outlets talking about that Ryan Garcia versus Pitbull Cruz is off. I just want to say if that's true, that's sad. I was hoping it was going to get made at least, because I thought it was a solid fight to me. To be made for Garcia. Obviously, Cruz is coming off a loss, but I mean, it's still a challenge. I mean, Cruz didn't get knocked out. He didn't, lose I mean, he lost the fight, but he didn't get knocked down a bunch of times or nothing, get hurt real bad. So I thought, this is a solid fight for Garcia, but I don't know. I'm just seeing, the headlines that Garcia Pitbull is off, and I saw an interview. I believe ES News. They had his dad talk. Pitbull's Cruz dad talking about that they had stipulations on Garcia if he pulls out of the fight, then he has to pay some sort of fee or something like that. And I guess I don't know what's going on, but I remember him talking about something like that. So yeah, I just want to say that sucks, but hopefully Garcia, this is a new year, so you better have a lot of making up to do, man, as a young JoJo Diaz, man. I hope so. That's what I always thought.
That's what I always thought it'd be.
Even with JoJo Diaz, I love that fight, man. I know he's coming off a loss, but that's experience that
both of them
that he's taken from. Mhm. Yeah, true. But I gotta say that Pitbull kind of, to me, Pitbull is more exciting. Just his style, the way he came forward to Tank, and wasn't scared of Tank. You know what I mean? So I thought, to me that's a lot of heart and a lot of spirit. You know what I mean? Showing a lot of will and guts. That's what I like. Obviously, I like also JoJo Diaz, but there's something about Cruz, man. He wasn't scared of Tank, so I like that, man. So everybody, what's his name? Barrios. As much as I liked him coming into the fight, I thought he fought too scared to me. I did like him, obviously I was pulling for him, but I just thought in
he was winning the fight, though. What do you mean scared? He was winning the fight.
No, not scared. No, not scared, but he was not.
You said scared.
No, he was not fighting his size. He wasn't fighting his size. Like he wasn't like, using his size up against him. Like, Pitbull was coming after him. What's his name? Barrios was like, kind of boxing him, trying to stay off the back foot.
Barrios doesn't. Yeah, I hear you, but Barrios, that's not his type of fight. He's in the middle of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a come forward, get in your chest type of guy, though. But I hear what you're saying.
No, I know that, but like sometimes, man, to me, you know me, Chris, the Mexican spirit is always in me. You got to show
when you're winning
toughness.
rounds,
You got to show grit.
But when you're winning rounds, it's hard to say change up your style. Because when he did start to get into exchanges, that's when he got knocked out too. So kind of goes both ways there.
Yeah, and so I mean it's preference, you know what I mean, and but to me I whatever, it's all good, you know what I mean. But as far as Ryan Garcia versus Pitbull, it sucks that it's off. But no, you know what I mean, and but yeah, man, and as far as that, I don't have too much to say, Chris. Also, but man, I just want to thank you, Chris, for having me on, man. Another year, man. I hope this year brings us a lot of great boxing, man. Hopefully they cool it down with the pay-per-views. I know, obviously, Keith Thurman is in one. That's when we'll see. You know what I mean? We'll see if I buy it. Obviously, we're all junkies, so you know what I mean. It's going to be hard not to push the play button or push the buy button there. So
we'll see if they do another half.
I hope if it's 40, it's doable. But if it's like $80 or what's the price now for for boxing now? It's like regularly, like 75, right?
75 is. And UFC just changed it now. They're 75 too.
75, yeah, man. It's yeah. So. Wow, I can't believe that's like just the set price now. You know what I mean? So, but hopefully it's not that. You know what I mean? But we'll see what it is. But yeah, man. But also, Chris, thank you for having me on. Viva Rope Dope Radio and Viva Mexico, cabrones.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And just to follow up on what he was saying about that fight, because I was gonna mention that fight too. The fight. It wasn't actually happening. It wasn't on or off, but they were in negotiations. And, Oscar says a lot, and he's been called out on so many times of being, lying about shit. But, I don't believe that they should owe money. Now, they could say, like, if Ryan Garcia, if all this stuff is true, which we don't know 100%, we've heard both sides, but guarantee him a fight that night. If Ryan Garcia pulls out, can he fight somebody? That's a little bit closer to, hey, so what happens? Because he has pulled out of some fights, whatever. But I don't think that he should be paid regardless. That's me personally. I don't agree with that. I don't think that they owe Cruz money if he doesn't fight. Now, the thing is, if Ryan Garcia pulls out, that'll stop the event. Now, were they trying to say, can you postpone, if it gets postponed, do I still get the fight? That would be a little bit different, Oscar did tweet that it's Bull and his crew, his team, that they turned down the lucrative offer. And he says that it was more than what he got for Tank, which I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes sense because Cruz, you got to pay Cruz more money anyway now because he proved himself. So I don't mind. He should be making more money than what he just made with Tank because he proved himself. Now, Sean Gibbons, the other side of it, said, Oscar, while I understand your desperation is showing for Ryan Garcia to show him that you're doing something on his behalf in your role as his promoter, do you think putting out falsehoods like this will impress him? See, I don't know that part. I don't know what was actually offered, but I will say this. If the sticking point was you have to pay me my full purse, Ryan Garcia pulls out, I don't agree with that. Now, that may be bullshit too. I don't know. Now, was he asking for some money? So, to spend money on camps and all that? I don't know if that's legit or not, but, at least it's a little bit better than if he wanted full money if Garcia got hurt and pulled out. I don't agree with that. I don't think, he's a solid B-side now, but we can't be like, well, Cruz gets paid regardless. Well, you know what I mean? I don't know about all that. But we'll see. We'll see if more information comes out on that. I don't know. Speaking of pullouts, Callium Johnson had to pull out with COVID of Joe Smith Jr. fight. That's not this weekend, but next weekend. That sucks. This is Coppinger. Sources say Juan Francisco Estrada and Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez have signed contracts for a March 5th Pachanga Arena. I haven't been in the arena at Pachanga, but I've watched it in ballrooms. It's a good ass place to watch a fight. So that's March 5th. That'll be on the Zone, Estrada and Gonzalez. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's really dope. Frank Warren on IFL TV today, I think he said that Tyson Fury's next fight will take place March 26th. He added that there's no current talks with Dillian Whyte, and the purse bids are scheduled for Tuesday, January 11th. And just to follow up a little bit more on that from the Bob Arum side, Bob Arum said that they were willing to give $5.5 million against the percentage. So we offered him a deal of 25%, which is a guarantee, but he says Dillian Whyte wanted to start at $10 million and then go up from there. You got to start at $10 million, and like I said, go up there. He said we wanted to guarantee at least $5 or $5.5 million against percentage, meaning he would get a little bit on the back end, but they wanted $10 million. It's kind of interesting because wasn't $5 million what Eddie Hearn offered Whyte for the Joshua rematch? And Whyte turned that down, so they're offering him right about the same amount of money. Fury said Andy Ruiz, Helenius, a UFC fighter are all on the table for that. So I don't know what that exactly means. Unfortunately, there's no UK fights in January. Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Williams had to be rescheduled. I think they rescheduled it to February. So, yeah, February 5th is when they rescheduled that. So, they shut them down. So there is no UK. Here's another one. Daniel Jacobs and John Ryder is going to be February 12th in London at a place that the Brits called Ali Pally. Shouts out to the UK there. So that's February 12th. Hopefully that fight actually takes place and it doesn't get mixed up with that. Like he said about Vargas Smith, Rungvisai and Quadros are on that undercard, by the way. February 5th in an arena in Glendale, Arizona. So the card was going to be at the Mandalay the week before Thurman and Barrios, which that's going to hurt those ticket sales. So I think that's smart to move it to that they're going head-to-head that day, but not at the box office. Also, Kiko Martinez and Warrington rematch is March 26th. That's going to be, I believe, in the UK as well. So I think I'm cut off now. I think that it just cut me off, even though I think the people on here can hear me, but the recording, I think that's off now. It just clicked in, so I'm sure it's going to cut me here anytime soon. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy the ShowBox fights tomorrow. I'll be back probably next Wednesday. Peace.